Okay, which is good. Now we're working. All right, Jenna and Randy, now you'll be able to hear us and see us, and we're on record, so we're watching our language. So I always want to make sure the mic's on. There we go. Now we're set. All right. All right, so hit me with it. I'm gonna write down a couple ideas. When you hear that word, what comes to mind? Throw it at me. What do you think?
Good assessment.
Yeah. And I tell you what, we're gonna talk, Chloe, too, a little bit today about the difference between assessment and evaluation. But I'm so glad you brought up assessment. Good. Give me another one. Yeah. So the idea of test kind of goes along with that word assessment. And I don't know about you, but most folks, when they hear assessment and test, it's not a happy word. Oh gosh. It's a judgment between what you know and what you should know. Usually, kind of a thing. Give me some more. Improvement. That's good. That's good. Yeah. So a little bit of improvement. That's a nice, a little bit more of a happier word. Depends on how you look at it, I guess. How you tell somebody they need to improve. You're doing great. Just needs to get a little better. So improvement, and that's kind of implying that that data is used to make an improvement. Good. What else? Measuring. So the idea of measurement, absolutely. The idea of measurement. Give me one more. Got a good one? Good learning. Good one. So when we talk about learning, it could be on the part of the person doing the evaluation, but also the person who's created the evaluation. Depending on how they look at that information, what can they do with it to improve their own, let's say, delivery? It's a good way to think about it. So thanks for sharing that. I asked someone one time, I'll write it over here so y'all can see it. I asked a group of folks one time for writing words and phrases down. When they hear that word, what comes to mind? And they wrote this down. One person did. I didn't know who wrote it down, but they put it in a box on their way out the door as they went to lunch. And I, over lunchtime, said, I'm going to summarize the things that you wrote down when you hear the word evaluation. And when we come back to lunch, I'm going to tell you what folks said. And I looked at this and I was just like, I don't get it. Like, I don't understand. So I said to the group, I said, I don't know who wrote this, but somebody wrote R-E-E-E, R-E-E-E, R-E-E-E. When they hear the word evaluation, that's what comes to mind. I said, could you help me figure out reading that? And this one lady raised her hand. She said, well, Ranger, do you know, in a horror movie, right before somebody gets stabbed, do you know the sound that you hear, the re, you know, like before? She said, that's what I think of when I hear the word evaluation. I just thought, whoa, you know, this is the hill I've got to climb now. This is what she thought of. You talk about a negative word. Most folks, believe it or not, when they hear the word evaluation, they are not as positive as I think many of you were in here. They're quite negative. Y'all are familiar with the CRCT testing that goes on? Do you know what that stands for? You get very good. Criterion reference competency test. Criterion reference, criterion and competency. It already implies we're going to see, do you measure up or not? It's not a, let's see how great you are. It's a, how far away from where you should be are you? It kind of starts negatively. CRCT has been, of course, a topic in the news for quite some time, and sometimes that comes up. Chloe brought up the idea of assessment, and often assessment is this what is versus what should be. An evaluation, we try to say, is done not to prove, and I like this saying, it's not to prove something, but it's done to improve something. And so that idea of improvement is a really, really good term to use. My goal today, is that when we're done, these kind of words change a little bit for you. I even hope that by the time we're done today, some of you use the word fun when it comes time to talk about evaluation. As silly as that sounds, I want you to think about evaluation that way. So here's my challenge for you. I have, and I know some of us have wonderful markers that they just bring along your cool markers back there. And I know Sigrid has brought wonderful markers and stuff like that. And here's my thing. I have my old school bag of these markers. Right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to select one color. We're gonna select one color, all right, out of this bag. All right, we'll start with this. Grab one color, pass it around.
Like all of that color, or just grab a pen?
Just one pen out of there, yeah. Select one pen out of there. All right. Back. Sigrid, I'm gonna hand this over to you. Probably our resident artist over here, I heard, but this is for all of you. I'm gonna leave it right here. Everybody's got a color there, okay? All right, this is gonna be our paper for over here. All right, everybody's got one color. I'm gonna leave this. I know these desks are kind of tight, so we might bring some over here. Everybody's got one big sheet. Now, you can use this sheet horizontally or vertically, however you like. My question for you is this. I would like for you on that sheet of paper to draw me a picture of, and here it is, a healthy wetland ecosystem. Using each of your colored pens, you have 3 colors, whatever you selected. I want you to use that page to draw me a picture of a healthy wetland ecosystem, whatever that means to you. Using those 3 colors that you have. All right, let's give this a shot. And by the way, y'all know this is a little red-eared slider right here? A little cute, yeah. Do y'all know, is that a male or female? Yellow, so it's male.
The male.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Yes, so these long fingernails. This is a male trying to attract a mate. He probably sees his reflection and he's trying to impress this other turtle. But the males have the longer nails and the females have the really, really short nails. And the males, to get a girlfriend, wave their nails in front of the other turtle's face to impress them. So he's trying to impress you here. Maybe you see this guy in a healthy wetland or red-eared slider. Maybe or maybe not. I'm going to give you a couple minutes to draw that healthy wetland ecosystem. All right, I'll put 7 max on the clock here today, and I'll allow you to get it done. Let's try it. Healthy wetland, and then I'll tell you what to do with it. Just using your 3 colors. Isaac says it's got to be wet if it's a wetland.
Underwater, but then you're gonna make something like trees and grasses. Yeah.
What color you got here? It's green, okay, purple, green, and pink, okay. Right, very nice. Ooh, that's not good. Draw that picture. In y'all color right here.
I was gonna really plan. We haven't done this at all.
I'll get to you in a couple minutes here. I finally got the other monitors working today, Chloe. I got all the monitors working today, so I was happy about that.
Yeah,
All right.
that's quick coloring. It's a very different skill set. Yeah.
What does this mean to you? Healthy wetland. Plenty of time on the clock.
There we go. I wasn't realize when I got here. Text my boyfriend, I said, I left the coffee at home, will you bring it please? Like, where is it? I said, on the counter, and he said, thanks for the free coffee. That's a start. And then there's nobody in line, and she gave it to me next time, you know, tomorrow, and I was like, you like that. My boy, how good your Dunkin' coffee is, like how well it was made by the color. And I get these back from you, and there's so much out, right? Yeah, it's just like, wait, like, do you want some donut or something? And I was like, I'm going out. Ice cream, so. We're workshopping every day.
You wanna take a look at these drawings when y'all are done, we're gonna hold them up. Let you look at them. Mangroves, yeah. We saw some of those down in South Florida. I think I put that email to y'all. We kayaked around through some of that. Yeah, that was neat stuff. Is that an alligator?
Okay, so eating for my,
A little bit of a circle of life there. Better than okay.
they would have been, yeah, blue water.
What's that? Otters?
I like the otters at the end,
Yeah, wow. Sea otters or river otters?
the Asian or South American river otters.
Yeah. You know, I've heard that otters can be really hungry and really kind of dangerous.
It was actually really heartbreaking out there though, because we had two and the female died. Yeah, the male was really stressed. It was really heartbreaking.
Wow. Funny you say that. Birds of prey are the same way. Owls, you know, they're monogamous. They mate for life. If one of the pair is killed or something happens, the other one will often not eat anymore and end up dying because they get depressed.
It was Ina and Bakari.
Is that right? Those are their names? Okay. Good deal.
He had a kind of abscess, a simple surgery to have it taken care of, but wildlife is not going in.
Okay.
There's an otter.
Did you draw an otter? You were talking. I didn't even notice. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I was thinking
See
it's
that?
supposed to be looking that way, but I am now thinking it is.
Quick time check. We got about 2 minutes. 2 minutes to go.
An otter.
On our normal
Well,
7
because
minute
it's like just
span
when you
here.
turn, just for the icing, you know.
I don't know why the 7 minute part.
And maybe more fish. I feel like there should be a lot of.
Alligator.
You have like tackle.
All right. Hey, come on, we're doing some artwork right here. Your team over here is working on a healthy wetland. What that looks like. We've got about a minute to go on our drawing. Okay. Is that a cat?
It's an otter.
It's like a river cat.
River cat. That's
Yeah.
You guys can come frogs.
We have
Awesome.
He had greens that he's doing the
Oh,
bowl left in
okay.
here.
that's right, Isaac, all the green stuff in a wetland. Okay. 45 seconds. Wrap up that drawing.
Brown.
Oh, yeah, you know what, the hell, let me. Oh, it's over here. Oh, it's hide it over. The hell, I'm gonna give this to you. Just if you want to add something here real quick, we have that color red right there. We're gonna use in a minute. So don't use the color red. All right.
I'm not totally sure.
And
what
we're not gonna use
Oh, you okay?
All right. All right, let's wrap it up. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, put that finishing touch on the drawing, okay? I want you to set it off to the side, okay? I want you to watch something. I want you to watch this video.
It doesn't make sense.
No, it's a log.
I love this video. I've used this in a couple different things that I do with folks. I want you to pretend that the video we're about to watch, about 2.5 minutes long, I want you to pretend that we have just spent, when you're done watching this, a couple of weeks together learning about wetlands. This video is going to be one that gives you a really great crash course in wetlands. You should watch it, then we're going to talk about it. All right, take a look at this. And I love the accents in the video too. I want you to hear this.
Melbourne Water works to protect many wetlands across the Melbourne area so our creatures can have a home. The Edith Vale seafood wetlands provide an important habitat for all kinds of creatures.
Some of the creatures you may not have in your wetlands.
Chris here works for
Like
Melbourne Water.
kangaroos.
He loves exploring nature and using his nifty binoculars to study wildlife.
At this wetland, there's quite a wide variety of animals. So we have something like 190 different species of birds, frogs, lizards, snakes, that are even bats, and kangaroos, fish, and quite a wide variety of small bugs as well. But wetlands are really important places for animals because they provide them with great habitat. So they provide all the food, water, and shelter that animals need. Wetlands are also really important as places for refuge in times of drought. Fish, frogs, and some birds will choose to breed in wetlands and raise their young for it to be a safe place.
A wetland food web can get pretty complicated. At the bottom, we have the plants, which are eaten by bugs and birds. Bugs might be eaten by some reptiles like lizards, and also by frogs and fish, which in turn are eaten by larger birds, along with some smaller birds. Living in the mud are our worms, yabbies, and crustaceans, which are responsible for cleaning up the wetland and recycling the nutrients. And these are eaten by larger birds too. There are so many things eating this and that in a wetland, it seems like a big tangled web. But of course, to those involved, it's all perfectly natural.
And unfortunately, there are some animals in a wetland that are not welcome. Introduced species such as foxes and cats can be a huge problem for
Where's
our
that cat?
native wildlife in our wetlands. But not all pest animals are introduced. Unfortunately, some native animals can become a problem. The large populations of kangaroos in a small area can overgraze an area, and that can be a big threat to the rest of the wetland. Fortunately, it's very easy to help our wildlife in our wetlands. If you have a cat, keep it inside and put a bell on it. If you have a dog and you're walking it, put it on a leash. If it does poo, pick it up, get it in. If you have any litter, also put that in the bin. It's pretty simple, and that will help keep our wetlands healthy.
It's so important to look after our wetlands and protect the wildlife that live in them.
Pretty nice, huh? Just imagine if we just spent several weeks together learning about the wonderful parts of wetlands. In fact, when I worked in Maryland, we had the Chesapeake Bay there, and I spent 4 weeks with middle schoolers. And twice a week for 4 weeks, so 8 times, we would get together. We would go out into a marsh and a boardwalk that would go out there at a state park, and we would look at the soil. We would put little traps and collect insects and crabs, because we had blue crabs up there, and we'd collect those. And there were so many different things that we did. At the start of that experience, truly that program, series of interrelated activities, we had 8 of them over 4 weeks. I asked all the kids, put your name on a big sheet of paper and draw me a picture of a healthy wetland. Then we spent a month together. And on the last day, you know what I said to those kids again? Here's a blank sheet of paper. I want you to draw me a picture of a healthy wetland. Put your name on it. And I would literally match up, let's say, Sigrid's pre-drawing from 4 weeks ago with Sigrid's post-drawing. And I would start to look at the differences. And what I'm going to ask you all to do now, given what you've just seen in that video, using the red marker for this team and the blue marker for this team, which is a different color than you all had picked from the bag, using only that color, I'd like you to make any additions or subtractions to your drawing. Scratch something out that might not be correct anymore. Add something that you may have missed based on what you saw in that video. Let's take a look at that and spend, I'm going to give you 5 minutes on this, a little bit shorter time. Have amongst yourselves, and let's update that drawing based on what you saw in that video. And then we're going to talk about it. 5 minutes on the clock this time. Let's give it a shot. And then we're going to compare our drawings. Using only the blue, using only the red over here again. We call this the pre-post drawing. Great first step in evaluation.
As long as you bring that in the pocket, I always go to an alligator.
I like that rebranded, this marketing stuff, marketing these animals, right? Secret, that's good. Yeah, that's right. Now, I know you may not have kangaroos in your drawing, but I love that video.
That's too like that. We also need bugs. That was.
That's good. We added
Like, I have
the extra
a-
bug. Update that drawing, and then we're gonna show
Yeah,
them,
that looks so nice.
using only your color, blue or red.
They have to do a lot of other things.
Need some reptiles.
We need to give them a little love, that's right, the reptiles need that, that's right. Good, Rahil.
Yeah.
Not good enough.
Okay. I got the red over there, he's making some additions. You have that, oh, you put that, that's a bat? Yeah, look at that, that looks great. I would have done that and called it a bat, but y'all are so good. That's true, that's
It's
a
really
bat.
birds.
Right, right. No, that looks good. All right, let's see how they've changed.
Yeah. What am I saying? With my one color.
Well over 2 minutes, make those final updates. All right.
No, that's my color. Get rid of the otter. Get rid of my otter.
Oh, that's the first time that anybody's ever drawn an otter. I will say that looks really, really good. Times I've done this, that's really cool.
The ring.
Is that your drawing for our class?
Now they can say, now I know.
But the music on that, I don't remember, that was last fall.
I didn't do
That was All right, you watched the same video
Yeah.
together when I talked about this
You
concept.
gave
I love-
me and Hawk both paper on accident.
Oh,
and
really?
Me and Hawk started drawing.
Okay.
If I had a face for finding it, but I think that's.
Minute and a half.
You draw kangaroos.
Any other updates?
The baby kangaroo.
Then we're gonna stand up here in the front and look at them together.
You can draw it.
It's gonna be a really tiny.
All right.
Always get the back wall of it.
Right, if it's an Australian.
Yeah.
that one, that's right, that's right.
Draw like
I heard they have.
a half circle, and then you go from there. How to draw a kangaroo.
All right, less than a minute to go.
No.
All right. So wrap up that part you're working on right there. All right.
I think that'll change it.
Yeah.
Oh, this really cute too.
Nice turn.
Great. I like
He's
that.
coming up for air, he's sitting there. All right. Sigrid, can we start with your team's drawing? Can we bring it up here to the front? Can I hold it up for y'all? So, I just want to say, so looking at, thank you so much. So y'all had the color red. I gave them the color red and I said, okay. Any addition to this drawing following the video, and you have to imagine in your mind that this has been several weeks of exposure to a training about wetlands. instead of a 2.5 minute video, just all things considered. Take a look at the addition. So you all added a bat. You all added this is a kangaroo.
Yes.
That's good. And what are these red things here?
They're insects.
Okay, so you got the insect part there. Was this added as well, these dots?
Those
What
are
are
insects.
those? Those are insects. Okay, so
They're like-
one of the things that sounds like you all got from the video was this idea of maybe the things that you might not normally think about that are out of sight, out of mind, you've added them into your drawing. Those are the big additions that you made.
Yeah.
Is that right? Anything else? I mean, and then maybe the stuff that feeds on them, like the bat. And it's good, okay. Anything else about this drawing you want to make sure that we know?
The otter is there.
Yeah, that's right. We have a beautiful otter. It's smiling over there, this blue otter right here. And this is what right here? That's a snake. Okay, yeah, that's good. I like it. I will say one of the things that jumped out at me in the pre-drawing when y'all did this, minus the red marker, is the emphasis on things that are, again, out of sight, out of mind. The roots that we can see here. A lot of people don't think about that. And I'll definitely say that kids don't think about it. Kids didn't think in the program I did in Maryland about soil. And yet so many of them would draw literally the different layers. They would see layers of soil that we'd look at, and they would draw the layers in there. And so do you see how this drawing thing and giving a group one color that they didn't use before to show the change is a really nice way to look at potentially learning. What you got out of an activity, you've now added it to your drawing. And I gotta tell you, this, I hope, didn't feel like evaluation for y'all. This felt like just having fun drawing a picture. And yet it told me a little something about what you learned. So this is cool. Thanks, man. How about a team over here? How about it over there? Jason, what you got? Let's see it. So y'all have the color blue. We're gonna go this way. So blue is the additions that were made to this, which again, here's an interesting thing. Looks like we've got an insect thing going on here. So there's a dragonfly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about this right here? What's
Alligators, yeah.
Oh, it's a nest. Okay, all right. And then we got like a heron or something over here. And what's going on here? Is this a bee nest?
A beehive, yeah.
Look at the insect theme that came out of this. Just from the video, it seems like we weren't thinking about things that were smaller, and that video inspires you to think about that. That's really interesting.
Also, all the blue on the bottom of worms and then the green.
Oh, that is neat. Now that's really cool. So here's other small things lower on the food chain that maybe you were reminded of in the video that you didn't think of before, or maybe you didn't know at all. And you just said, oh, I have no idea. I'm going to put them into my drawing. Again, another example. This probably didn't feel like an evaluation, but it was something that you did and could tell me as an educator, as a program implementer, something was going on. And gang, I think that's the secret, is to make an evaluation not feel like an evaluation. That's the secret. How many of y'all have test taking anxiety? And I'll just tell you, I do. I used to have to, thanks for sharing that, I used to have to go into a room and take exams and quizzes as a college student away from everybody, because I would have that feeling that everybody else knew more than me, and it would affect me, as I was sitting there. We talked about imposter syndrome, and the idea of evaluation, the idea of assessment, and measurement, and testing, there's an element of anxiety, and that can distort what somebody really knows that they're indicating on a test. So the more things you can do that don't feel like a test and don't elicit that anxiety and that nervousness, the better. It really, really is. Now, I will also promise you, in a couple of weeks, we will talk about questionnaires, which is the most widely used evaluation tool in the world, more than anything. I'm going to show you how to develop one, an accurate one, a good one. But right now, I want to talk about fun techniques like that. So that's kind of neat. What I want you to look at over here, I got 3 letters up on this board, and you're going to know what they each mean by the end of the day. But the first letter that I want you to know about stands for frequency. And what we've just done is under this world of frequency, it's how many, I'm just going to call it things, in quotes, pre-post. How many things did you write or draw before the video? How many additional things did you write after the video? So this whole idea of how often something occurred, the frequency of something you're observing, is one of three things that we can measure. Frequency. We're gonna talk about I and D here in a little while, but the first thing is frequency. How many things are we seeing in our drawing? Simple thing that you can do. So that's frequency. More on I and D here in a little bit. I want to show you that. I love pre-post drawings. There have been a number of, and I don't know how many of y'all have ever gone on to the library systems search thing. You can look at theses and dissertations and studies, and go on there one time and look up pre-post drawings. There's an incredible amount of research that's been done on the validity of pre-post drawings as a legitimate form of evaluation data for kids and for adults. They use these with engineering students. A lot of different things are done with drawings. At first, as you can imagine, when the idea of a drawing being used as an evaluation came out, there were people that thought, come on, a drawing. But we're finding that that is an accurate depiction of what someone knows is based on what they've drawn. Now, here's the downside to a drawing. And I already knew, that blue thing was an otter on it. I knew it. But what if I didn't know that that's what that was? And I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, we had a team draw a cat swimming in the water at the wetland. So you can see where accuracy comes into play here. And that's where I'll just mess with you. But you can see where sometimes we'll say to an audience, label your drawing if you need to, so that we know what you meant by that thing. If you saw a drawing that I made about a wetland, oh, you would feel so much better about yourselves because I am awful at art. So wanted you to see pre-post drawings and how cool that is. So that's our first technique of many today that I want to show you. Here's our roadmap. I want to talk just for a minute or two before we go too much further about where we left off before spring break, about moving our participants from, remember, awareness to action, A to N. We say quite a bit. I want to talk about that in the context of your program, because that's something that's going to come in as part of Pi Part 2 in about 3 weeks. So we're going to work on that a little bit today. I want to get all kind of into this idea of formative evaluation. The drawing was one type. There are many other types. I want to talk about those today that you can use with your pilot program. We're going to do a little assessment. I know that Chloe and Kason and Sigrid, a couple others have done this. I want you to do it again. I want you to see what you get the second time around. Others have never done this. I want to try it. We're going to evaluate your style today in here. And then we're going to use the results of that to do a little something together today. And I will get us started before the end of today, and we'll start and pick it up next week with probably the biggest part of Pi Part 2. We will start today. Next week, when we come together, we'll finish it, do a little peer review with it. And Yang, I got to tell you, most of Pi Part 2 will be done by the time we're done next week. So I promise you, as we went along this semester, that Pi is going to get easier. That phase 1, that Pi Part 1 was the hardest part. I promise you it is. Part 2 and Part 3 are really a lot easier, and I think they're even more fun, to do. So that's where we're going with this today. Now, here's what I wanted to pick back up on. Y'all remember me talking about community-based social marketing 2 weeks ago before spring break. And here's a picture of, you remember Yogi Bear and the park ranger there. I said that Nick was a park ranger, and I talk about these 6 ingredients of behavior change for him.
I had a quick question about
Sure.
Pi Part 2.
Yeah.
For the questionnaires, if I use questionnaires like before starting the program, could I use the same questionnaire post-program, or would that be okay? Like
Yeah,
even all the
absolutely.
big questionnaires?
You absolutely can. So, and Rahil, I know the form that you sent me, is that the questionnaire you're talking
Yeah,
about?
that's exactly the question.
Yeah, I mean, you could. I'm going to show you a little something 2 weeks from now that you can do instead of a traditional pre-post questionnaire.
Mhm.
You can do at one point in time. Ask them, where were you before you engaged in this program? And where are you now? Ask them at one moment. So you don't have to try to match up their pre and their post.
The short answers like from those.
Yeah, and honestly, it's a little bit more valid data that you can get when you ask at the end only
Yeah.
versus the beginning and the end. And here's why. They call it a retrospective. It's called a retrospective post, then pre. That sounds really complicated, but it's basically saying, I'm gonna give this instrument only at the end. And I'm gonna ask you to rate yourself where you were before today. Now rate yourself where are you now. The reason it's more valid, I can't tell you how many times we've done a traditional pre-post where in a pre-questionnaire, somebody rates themselves higher than they might normally. And they get to the post questionnaire at the end of the whole program. And people will literally call me up and say, hey, Ranger Nick, I'm comparing my pre-data with my post data. And they will say, and my participants got dumber because of my program. I said, what are you talking about? I said, well, they were this smart in the pre, and after they're not as smart. They're saying, well, that's because they don't remember where they were pre. And so it's a little bit more honest to ask about it at one moment, and you get a little bit more valid data.
Oh, okay.
Plus, then you don't have to try to match up pre's and post.
Exactly.
That's a good question.
Oh, okay.
That helps. Okay, good deal. I'm glad you asked. That's good stuff. Yeah, oh yeah. So give me one of these 6. Any of them, what's it stand for? NICCPR. I mean, maybe one that really resonates with you of that model. Do you remember? The more the better. The more of these we have in place, the greater the chance of action. Anybody remember one of those 6?
Incentives.
You better believe it. And as I trip over this thing and hop back, I is for incentives, WIIFM, what's in it for me? That's good. You know, good one. Incentives, norms. What are other people doing or not doing with regards to this behavior? When I say not doing, it could be smoking or something like that. We don't want people to do it. So the norm is we don't do that. Speeding, we don't do that here. Yeah, so norms is good. Give me another one. We'll fill them up.
Communication.
Yeah, so I often will do the call 1-800. You're all ready. Yeah, you know. So the idea of communication was so funny. We knew the rest of that because the marketing, and there's that community-based social marketing, the marketing of Stanley Steamer is so good that we know that jingle. And it's funny how that jingle ties into a behavior. Call the number 1-800 and spell out Steamer. It's kind of funny. So communication. This C was commitment. The other C, that idea of pinky promising Sanford, or signing a petition, or shaking hands with somebody. You remember what the P stood for? I'm busy. That's right. I gotta be reminded I'm very busy. Give me a prompt. And then this R was remove external barriers. If you're gonna ask me to do one more thing, take something else off my plate and make it easy for me, or at least perceived to be easy to do. This is so essential because in our program, we know that a medium-term outcome, remember our logic model from weeks ago? A medium-term outcome is behavior change. We want somebody to do something. Well, if we want them to do it, we got to get them to do it more than once. So the more of these that are in place, the better. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to do me a favor and literally in a Word document, if you want, or write it on a scratch sheet of paper, but literally type this into Pi Part 1. This is a part, or excuse me, Pi Part 2. This is a part of Pi Part 2. Either give me to encourage my stakeholders to continue engaging in my program, I intend to, or to encourage my actual participants to implement an action, I will. How many of those elements of NICCPR can you integrate into your program? I want you to write me a sentence about it. We'll spend a minute or two now doing that. Maybe you'll push the norms thing. Maybe, I tell you, I'm thinking about what Sigrid's doing with the grocery store. Sigurd's probably going to have to remind folks to do some of these things. So maybe prompts are going to come up that are going to be a pretty big part of this. You know, I'm thinking about what Isaac's doing with the group with stress management, time management. The idea of norms are going to be huge. Isaac's literally got a support group together that it sounds like Isaac wants to make sure that those participants know they're not alone in this idea of feeling overwhelmed and being able to cope with things. So either one of those, I want you to start your sentence with either of those, either your stakeholders or your participants, and complete that sentence. All right, some of us, I will just say, I'm gonna run a limb here. I will say most of us probably will be writing something about stakeholders because our stakeholders are our participants in our pilot program for many of us. Yeah, but either one of those. Write out that sentence for me. We'll do it right now. Because that's going into part two. That is a part of the assignment. One or two sentences tying in an ICCPI. And I want to hear a couple of these in a minute, and I want to hear what you got. Because it's so important. We want this program to make a difference. We want behaviors to happen, not just once, over and over. All right. And when you get your sentence done, I'll tell you what, stand up, take yourself a stretch break real quick. It's a pretty day outside. It really is. If it wasn't for that phone, I'd like to be out there, but better to be inside. Your Hill's got it done. All right, stand up. When you're done. Look at this. All right. All right, let's all sit back down. This is good. All right, so I want to hear, give me 2 and 2. Give 2 from over here. Anybody at this table, 2 of you. What do you think, Rahel? Are you going with stakeholders or participants? Which one?
Participants.
Okay, so encouraging these participants in your financial management pilot program to implement an action. I gotta ask you this question before you complete the sentence. What's the action you want them to implement?
The action is the, one of the game or like activity that I'm planning throughout from the beginning of the program till the end,
Okay,
which would be like, it's called trading wars. Basically, they will compete against each other to see who maximizes the most investment
okay,
at the end of the program. And so that would, I would create a incentive program or like a reward system for the first 3 participants, like number 1, number 2, and number 3.
okay.
And like every week, they'll be able to, like, we can, like, they'll announce who are the top 3.
Was this online? They're doing
Yes.
this online? Okay.
Yeah, but they'll all be together,
Okay.
like when everyone meets up every week, they'll all be together. So they can share details on what the top 3 people did right. And so that way, like even other people can have equal chance for the future competition.
So that's cool. All right, so how are you gonna do, what parts of NICCPR? I already heard incentives. That's cool. What
Yeah.
else are you gonna do to push this?
I mainly thought of, what do you say, incentive. I was thinking of taking some type of, resistance out of the external,
Okay,
but I'm not sure yet. I'm still working on that.
okay,
Maybe that would be able to have them focus
okay.
on the game itself. So I might do something like that, or I might, like for the first 3 people, I might have them, I don't know, to be honest.
That's
yet,
okay.
But I'll
That's all right.
definitely get it.
Early. I'm also thinking because Rahil, bless you, because Rahil is giving them, bless you, to share amongst themselves about where they are in this game of making decisions about finances. and things.
Yeah,
That's kind of a norm thing. I mean, you're sharing amongst each other and sharing, well, this is where I am, this is where you are. You're kind of creating that this is the norm. We hope that the norm is when they get out of your program, they're gonna continue doing this stuff.
exactly.
They're gonna continue thinking about finances and investments.
Exactly.
You know, I'm imagining not a lot of people think about this stuff. And so you're really giving them a life skill. I think.
Exactly, and especially people who are not like towards like a finance side, like not in Terry or anything, like other types of programs.
Yeah.
They'll be much more interested once they learn.
Interesting.
And I think that would be one of my focus groups as well. I
Okay,
don't want to do Terry, like Terry students, because that would give them a boost before they join Terry.
Okay.
They would have something to put on their resume to apply for
Okay.
Terry.
okay,
But I'm really focusing on non-Terry students, because
Okay.
that would really help them long term.
good deal, good deal. And right now, what's your population, we'll call it, for your program? Are they Terry, non-Terry? Where,
They're all freshmen, so
Okay.
most of them are undecided,
okay,
but there are like about, I would say about 30% to 40% that are definitely going for Terry.
wow.
So I'm
okay,
trying to focus on other groups as well.
Okay, good,
So I'll be like, I'm trying to pass on to like all my previous like all the previous groups I was in, like when I went to doc camp and all. So I'll be passing on over there to all the freshmen
good deal.
who would not be like non-Terry students. I think that might help.
You know, in a way, I'm thinking about long-term impact. Potentially a marketing kind of a thing for business and how cool this is when you know how to do this stuff. The financial side is pretty neat. It's also risky too, but you're balancing that.
Yes,
You know,
exactly. And I've talked to the head finance professor,
Really?
Dr. Pope, and he's helping me out a little bit on that.
Really?
So hopefully like, cause his class teaches some of the same concepts.
Okay,
So for Terry student, that might be a really big boost. If they
wow,
learn all the
cool.
concept before going to the class. So they might have a easier time.
In a way, it's kind of like a hook for that class, as you're kind of priming the pump a little bit. That's really neat,
Exactly.
Bill. Cool. So you've got some components that you can put right in Pie Part 2 from that behavior change theory, and that's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Give me one more, thanks for help. One more for this table. Anybody else want to share? Stakeholder or participants, ingredients from NICCPR. What do you
Well,
think, Isaac?
I did the second one.
Okay, so those participants, very good, okay?
The action is to plan out, just, at least for one of the activities, plan out their week,
Okay,
what they're gonna do every day, what time.
calendar wise, okay,
That type of stuff.
okay,
In hopes to remove external barriers,
absolutely, for that, absolutely.
kind of show them what tools they can use, whether it's calendar on your phone, Outlook, Google, whatever.
I can not only see remove external barriers, but I can also see the norms thing, because it is a support group kind of a deal. I think remove external barriers is so important for you, because if they see this time they spent on their calendar as one more thing on their list, is that gonna make them feel more overwhelmed? Like, now I have to work on my calendar. I think you push in the fact that that's a little work up front, but it's really gonna help them in the long run. Huge, huge thing for you to bring up. That's very important. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, that's a good one. That's good, good. All right, give me two from over here, gang. What are we thinking? You want to share? Anybody? All right, Clay, what you think? This is teachers, target audience, okay? We going with stakeholders or participants?
I said something.
Okay, because they really are your, you know. So what's the, what are you gonna do from NICCPR to get them to continue engaging?
I said that I was gonna provide them with future lesson plans when they implemented a lesson within their classroom.
Okay,
Because I think that is an incentive, like focus on lesson plans, but then also the lesson plans will have like the norms of engagement.
good idea.
And then, what was the other one? Oh, removing external barriers, because they already have it written up, they don't have to.
Absolutely. And in a way, the lesson is sort of a prompt. Here it is, and the way you title that, the way you market that, that's a really so. The idea of incentives, prompts, and remove external barriers here for you as well. That's cool. Summer case that either of y'all want to share? One from what you're doing? What do you think? You wanna try it, Casey? This is, we're talking fishing now. We're on a new, okay. Casey's got a new path he's on now. We're talking participants or stakeholders? Okay, all right. What is it you want them to do?
So the main thing, well, I want them to, increase the amount of time that they spend fishing.
What a cool objective that is. Ultimate outcome, right? That's what I'm saying. Great behavior. And just think with me for a second before you go any further, Casey. What benefits could happen when somebody engages more in fishing? I mean, just think about for their life. What do you think?
Patience.
That's a good one. You're gonna learn about patience. That's right. That's gonna be an outdoor thing where they're away from stuff. Absolutely. Think about these long-term impacts on health and well-being,
Yeah, we
absolutely.
eat.
Well, that's true too, yeah,
Yeah, like meat.
absolutely, yeah, eating healthier, that's good, if they're successful at that, that's
Yeah.
right, exactly. Sorry, Kason, tell us now, with this idea of fishing, how you gonna use NICCPR? What do you?
So the main thing would be just, removing external barriers, with the people I'm working with right now, they just don't know how to go about this, so
Okay,
that's the barrier in itself, they don't know how to, so if I teach them, they'll be able to. And in an ideal world, I will be able to give them an incentive after they completed the program, I can give them like a little cheap fishing pole.
okay, all right.
First thing to understand.
Yeah, and that's, but in an ideal world, thinking outside the box, not only is that an incentive, but that's also, I think, a form of commitment. You invest in them, you're hoping that now they're gonna use this thing and invest in others, take a kid fishing for those initiatives and things. So if you're provided with this resource, we're counting on you to deliver. We're counting on you to move forward and fish with somebody. That's huge. In a way, that kind of gets at the guilt trip a little bit too, like we're getting the fishing right. It's like when you get the it's never happened to me. I got a $5 bill in the mail one time and a questionnaire. And the people that sent the questionnaire, crisp $5 bill that said, we know your time's valuable, and whether you complete the questionnaire or not, we wanted you to have this $5. And I did, of course, I'm gonna always do the questionnaire because I try to help out, But I would feel so guilty if I took the money and didn't do anything. So I completed the thing. I thought it was a really interesting little technique in guilt tripping, someone almost, but okay, so that's a neat way to think about that. Cool. Okay. You got a big part of pie part 2 here. I'm gonna ask you about that and we'll talk more about it next week. Set that off to the side. That's wonderful. One more thing to drill in NICCPR. You remember this? We brought this up over the course of our semester. I love this. We talked about the 4th grade teachers and the FFA students. Now I want to take it to the high school teachers. This was the group that, according to this assistant principal at the high school, the teachers feared the school garden. Didn't know what to do with it, didn't know how to truly integrate it into their lessons, into their curriculum, beyond just going out there and picking weeds in the garden, as I think I shared with you. What kind of things from NICCPR, if we had to apply it to this, could we use to push with the high school teachers? Because we've already talked about it for your program. What could you do with those teachers? I'm thinking about one right off the bat here. NICCPR, what would you say to help those high school teachers use the garden? Not just once, but over and over. You're that assistant principal. You're setting the tone for that organization.
With the veggies.
So from the garden, they get the fruits of their labor, literally. They get, that's a good one, the veggies of their labor. That's a good one. So communicating an incentive from this is cool. Have you ever heard of folks doing a little competition from the garden? Like who can grow? There's different rows. Imagine that. There's different rows and different grade levels have different rows. And the grade level that grows the most weight of vegetables or the greatest number of vegetables gets some prize. Can you imagine it? An incentive to use it and get excited about it. What else could we do with this thing to promote engagement? Incentives is a huge one.
Can you kind of work a little bit with norms, like show them examples of other schools, talk about their,
Absolutely. Be able to talk about what have others gotten from this. And I would focus on the students. So by using this, here's what's happened for your students. Teachers usually respond very well to here's what's in it for your kids. I'll do it for the kids. That's a great one. I even think the norms thing too, if the assistant principal said, this is the way we do things here, that really creates a culture of, well, we are going to invest resources in you as a teacher to use that. That's a good one. Sigrid.
If you remove the barrier, like if there's a garden teacher specifically, so that's not only are they wanting to sit in and learn that for them, they get maybe a planning period out of it, something like that.
That's a neat idea. Give them a little bit of extra time. I was thinking remove external barriers, like with just the resources. So y'all, I want you to use it. I've gone out, I'm the assistant principal. I've gone out and I've purchased some shovels. I purchased some gloves. I got some topsoil and I'm going to make this stuff available to you. I'm going to try to make this as easy as possible. That's a real good, I've written a letter for you to send to parents to let them know you're gonna be taking the students out to the garden, because I gotta tell you, one of the biggest barriers teachers will tell us for using it is they don't wanna hear from parents that the kids got their clothes messed up going out in the garden. That's one thing, the teachers just don't wanna hear it, so being able to know that is that's a good idea. Oh,
I was thinking if you had some kind of like catchy name for the garden or something, or like a phrase that
cool idea.
goes along with it for, like communication and marketing.
That's a cool idea. So if you call this thing something, even calling it something would make it part of the norm. This is what we do at the school. Yeah, that's a really neat idea. That's really, we're gonna talk at the end of today and into next week about a name for your pilot program and how important that is at branding your program. It's a really neat idea. Isn't this cool? When you start thinking about behavior change, norms, incentives, communication, commitment, prompts, remove external barriers, it just gets fun. I mean, this is very good. Okay, so we're gonna put the behavior change thing aside for now, all right? We're gonna take a break. We're a little bit after 4 o'clock, and Sigrid, thank you so much for bringing stuff in over here for us. Let's take a break. I'm gonna give us a 10-minute break, so we'll come back at about 4:15 or so. Thanks for that. And when we come back, we're gonna do this little assessment together. Don't feel bad about the assessment. It's a fun thing. It's not really a test. And then we're gonna use that for what we'll do in a little while. All right, so let's take our 10-minute break right now. We're right at a good spot. And yeah, we'll do that. Sigrid, thank you for doing that too. Anything from the meat lab?
No.
No, okay,
My
okay.
name is actually on the note.
Okay, well, I saw that's on the back of our sheet there. Yeah. Good to see you, Rahel. Thanks, I got you part one. Thanks for sending that. Oh, absolutely. No, what's up? Are you driving over? Driving over from Atlanta? Yeah.
I love that one.
Oh, my gosh. No, I always remember that you do that each week, and I really am thankful you do that. Oh, thanks for doing that. That's,
I love this class.
well, thank you. That's good stuff. That's good. I'm glad you're in here. Always.
Nick,
Hey,
You said like about the pollen. I was thinking like me.
you were reminded?
I thought, Nick.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, let me just tell you, all day today, and I take my allergy medicine, it's like a 12-hour thing, and then I do the nasal spray stuff. And it's just totally, I just feel everything's heavy. My arms are heavy, my legs are heavy. It's just, I'm not tired, but I'm just strained, feeling. Yeah, that's how it is. Yeah. I'm sorry I reminded you of that.
I don't know. It's just like.
It's chocolate chip, not raisin. Chocolate chips, not raisin.
Okay, thank you.
I would never.
I like oatmeal raisin cookies because I think they're marvelous.
I love a cinnamon raisin bagel. I like the texture.
I have to change them.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do you have a,
Um,
do you ever do like the oatmeal cookies? Like from.
this was last week in Chicago.
Oh, wow. They did that for St. Patty's Day. Yeah, I've heard it. I've been right there before along that river. That's
Oh, yeah.
beautiful. They've got those tours that they do. That's so
Exactly,
neat.
so that's
Wow.
where they're pouring from.
That's cool. Look at that.
So they,
Oh, wow. So wait a minute. So there's, that boat is the one doing it.
yeah, it's
Hey,
pouring
look
it
at
on.
that. I'll be darned.
Exactly.
Wow. That's so cool. You know how much dye that has to be to do that to that
Exactly,
water?
and at the end, it looks crazy.
Because you saw them actually setting that up.
Look at the color.
Whoa. Rahil's talking about in Chicago, in the river there, they put green
The
dye for
St.
St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah, they did
That's
it last week.
incredible.
It's.
Yeah, Savannah too,
Yeah,
and they stopped.
I have heard that
Yeah,
same thing.
They did it last Saturday.
Oh, come right on.
I wonder how the fishers would be able to see you from the bottom.
And I think that's what happened in Savannah. A lot of people said, wait a minute,
Yeah.
how can anything see? How is it affecting their breathing? What is the implications of this on that?
Exactly.
And they even said if you dye the water, will that increase the temperature? Because it's, like, let's say the water's darker now.
Yeah.
And it's gonna crank the temperature, so it's gonna reduce the oxygen. I mean, it's just, there was a lot, and so I get why they stopped, but
Yeah,
But Savannah is apparently the place to be,
Yeah. My
On
sister was
Friday.
down there.
really, okay,
Well, they had this Independence Day parade on Sunday first.
really, so it's not on Friday, oh, it was this past Sunday, really? For
Oh.
your
Good
driving
night.
adventures.
I'm like,
That nice
really
green
small
vomit.
part of me wants to be like, pet.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to skip out here on
Well,
that.
the other night campus driver isn't gonna be there,
Oh, no.
and they're
Oh.
really bad about not filling the late night shift. Because the student slot goes out at like 1, and then there's even another timer until 3.
So you are a full timer, you're full, okay.
And, he's not gonna be there, it's my boyfriend, he's going home.
Okay.
And I was like, leave me, he's like, I go home. Just freaked me out a little bit. And they're really bad
In
about
my
not
head,
filling
I'm
full time
like,
slots, they're like, the student's there till 1:30, and that's just one bus. That's from me too. I don't wanna do it, I'm so not looking forward to Friday.
Is it I mean, I don't know, is it a really big time, in
What's
Athens
the,
on St. Patrick's Day? Because it's on a Friday this year?
Yeah.
That's what makes it bad.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think
Okay.
so too.
I did not know that.
I'm generally dressed.
That's why there are so many people that don't appreciate what you do, because
I
they
get a
don't see
5%
that.
discount at lunch hut.
Oh,
nice. 5%? Yeah, cause I'm a service worker.
Do you just show them your card or whatever, you show them?
You pull up in the bus.
They know.
That's
us.
right.
Your lunch hut downtown,
It's like across from the arch.
where, the Euro Wrap place used to be.
Yeah.
I'll be
And
darned.
it's lunch hut, and they're only open from 9 PM to 3 AM.
Oh my gosh.
So it's a really great late night option for us if we don't get our lunch before 10, it's just really close. Like every. They're open to 3. We waddle in there and we're like, hey,
Bring the bus.
feed
in.
me, please.
That bus.
We borrow the driver. But we do the same job, they feed them, I move them around.
That's so precious.
You're a reference.
Yeah, to Starbucks.
Oh, I thought it was been on business.
Just reopened, like last semester, next to like Starbucks and Walker's. From college. Lunch was good though, they have like Phillies, chicken fingers, wings, all your favorite late night lunches for a very long time. But I don't love them on Thursdays and Fridays, when you try to dress
I
up
like
like
a
a
lot.
lot, so I'm like, no, you can't have food on here.
One was engaged, one was getting married.
It's
one
not
was
even rule.
moving to somewhere, and I was like, this is so much.
The amount of people, I will put my arm in front of them, and go, no, you can't bring that on the bus after midnight.
My
They'll go,
mom was like,
okay, and then try to walk past me. It brings like a feral reaction out of me. Like, no. Huh?
I've seen a lot of announcements. A lot of like baby boomers, I think, all that.
I had to, I counted them and I was like, leave it. Same thing.
The recipe has you make basically banana and caramel like halfway through. And it's very time consuming, but it makes them, so much better than I mean.
When I make chocolate chip cookies, I brown the butter first. You have to wait for it to cool. It's time consuming. Well, you taste the difference.
It's like, this is stuff I think stupid, like I'm sitting there microwaving bananas at 37 increments, and like spraying down all the liquid, then I recook it with butter. But it's so yummy.
Y'all are on video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's always just, so when I was sick, I watched Favorite the whole time, pretty much. Cause it just kept, it'll follow direction down. I mean, cause he moved around so much, they were very, all over the place.
I just still cannot get over that. Next week is 2/3 of the way through our semester, I mean, we're just, The end is quickly approaching, which is exciting / stressful at the same time. Remind me again, Sigrid, when's graduation?
May 12th.
It's gonna be nice. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was in the spring or the summer, but it's gonna be spring, okay. good.
I get to walk in the spring. Technically,
Okay,
it's the summer.
yeah, okay. Well, I'm glad they allow that because they used to not, they used to, do summer graduation, everybody would go, and it was like, well, you took summer graduation away,
Well, they were also playing with this thing about like limiting the number of people you could invite to come with you. And so when I talked to my advisor at first, she was like, you might not, like, you might only get 2 tickets. I said, well, what if my sister wants to come
Right,
too and all that? And so then they emailed, I think they said you get 5, and then they'll just send another one saying it's now unlimited, which is good, but confusing.
they,
I know
they,
that, master's students are allowed to. I tried to walk them.
because you'll graduate in the summer. Interesting. That's interesting. I do know that this was one of those things, this actually came up one day. I'll tell you a quick story, then we'll jump on the horse and keep on riding. People will ask me sometimes, they'll say, your name. Does anything ever get you, really fired up? I mean, in a mean way, not that I'm a mean person, but do you ever get mad at me? So rare that you would get me mad about something. I would get mad about something, but I use this example. I had a student a couple of years ago, right after they had done this summer, no more summer graduation, had a master's student. She was done. A week before she was gonna defend, a week after graduation. So I said, look, her family's coming into town. I said, absolutely. You go to graduation and walk, it's a couple of seconds across the stage. And then we'll do your defense a week after everything's done. It was non-thesis, all that. We'll do your defense, kind of final exam, and we'll wrap it up. I got this nasty gram basically from the grad school saying this student walked at graduation and should not have. So then I wrote back, so I was not aware of this. Well, they took this to a whole nother level. Like they wanted to meet with this student. It was like an academic dishonesty thing that she walked because she shouldn't have and all this. And it was such a they had this committee of people reviewing what she had done. It was so far out of proportion. And I said to somebody, I got somebody on the phone about this, and I just said, you know how many hours that someone has spent on this for a 30-second walk across the stage that a student wanted to do because their family was there. I just said this, and the poor student had such a bad taste in her mouth over this because she felt bad that she lied about being ready to graduate. I said, she didn't lie. It was just, the whole thing was taken so much out of proportion. That was one time because the student was put in a bad spot. I said, that is absolutely, I just can't think of a crazier thing that I would do to a student than that, what you put her through. She just felt so bad. And for her to feel that way at the end of her time as a graduate student, I just thought, so I told him, I said, this is absolutely ridiculous. This whole thing, it really got me fired up. And it was after that I said, okay, we're not gonna walk unless, by golly, you have done your final exam. You've done that thing. And
Yeah, that's
what a
why I
shame.
can't walk,
yeah.
because I won't have had done my final exam.
So did they tell you that? Okay. Because before nobody, and maybe it was me that, I don't know, because nobody said anything before, and then I sent the student forward and they said, you should not have done that.
The really
And I
funny
said,
thing is that they had traced it back and found out you were on my committee.
maybe they should, but it was this, and it was, I think I saved it. It was like a 58-page document that they sent to the student with all these things, like these rules about you can't do this. And I talked to this person on the phone. I just said, I cannot believe that this much effort has gone into a 20-second walk across the stage. This student defended the week after. Come on.
By the time they're making all this fuss that she would have presented about.
She was done the next week, and finally, everything's passed, everything's fine. And the other thing I said is, no one ever told me you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, like you were told, though, you can't, nobody ever said you can't. I know of places you could pull somebody in off the street, put a cap and gown on, write their name on a card, give it to the person at the stage and just walk across the stage. And they'll say your name, and you have your gown on. They don't know whether or not you're a graduate or not. It's just, and here at UGA, you don't get your diploma. You know, you just walk. So it's not like we're handing them anything. I mean, it's just the whole thing. So that's one instance where I was really, because this poor student of mine felt so bad. I was upset for her. I said, this is really bad that y'all did this to her. So that's one of the few.
About, Stedman?
Yeah, the whole roof and everything. So that, I guess that's why the unlimited attendance, because are they gonna do it in the stadium, I guess, or?
Grad students are doing stadium.
Yeah. So I guess Stegman's out.
Usually.
Yeah.
The whole thing's boarded up.
Isn't that something?
Not boarded.
Yeah.
The ceiling stuff,
Yeah.
like this much of it, like not a
Oh, I
lot,
don't even know
but
how
it's
big
like
was it.
the fourth time it's happened. So they were, and it's the biggest chunk that's fallen down, so they're like, picking out a little bit, because the building is structurally unsound.
It's an old building.
Yeah, it's pretty old.
They are constantly having teams of engineers come in and try and figure out if they can make
Yeah,
it.
they sent that whole email out. I was like, man.
Read the whole thing.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
When I started, the thing had scaffolding on it. Like,
Duct tape.
yeah, like, the building.
All right. Well, let's have a little bit of fun. Let's learn a little bit about you. A couple of us have done this in here before. I want you to do this again on a scratch sheet of paper, if you would. Maybe it's that same piece that you were writing down your couple of sentences from a second ago. Number 1 to 18 for me, please.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah,
What did you give me this for?
we're gonna use it in a little while.
Oh.
Yeah, we're
I
gonna use
thought we
that
used
card
it
in a little.
before I got it.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We're gonna use that in a little while for something. All right, number 1 to 18. We're gonna talk about social styles. I've done this in a couple of my classes and I love it because it tells us the way that others perceive us in a social situation, in a team situation. And there's also quite a bit of work that relates to how others perceive us in terms of our role as a facilitator in implementing a program. And we know from what we've talked about that teacher, the educator, is a big part of the TEA, the 3 things that can influence whether a program succeeds or fails. So I like to talk about this because this little inventory is an 18-question inventory we're going to do. Will tell you the type of person that others perceive you to be. And the other thing I'll say about this, and this is words from the test, this isn't my words, but there are 4 styles that we're going to talk about, and no one style is better than another. And as a facilitator of this instrument, they put you through a little training and they say, look, you got to be really careful the way you talk about the 4 styles, because you don't want somebody to think because they're this style versus this style, that they're any better or less than somebody else. They're all great. It's just there are 4 styles. And in the world of program development, the reason I do this in here and why we care about it is because the more you know about you, better you are at interacting with others. So we did some tree drawing stuff. We did the pig drawing thing together. Now we're going to do this social styles inventory. And we'll do one other thing this semester before the end. So learn a little bit more about you, before we do this. So 1 to 18, what I'm going to ask you to do is, as you see each of the questions come up on the slide, I just want you to write the letter beside the answer that most closely matches you. And the other thing that the instrument tells us as facilitators is they say, don't overthink your answer. So when you look at the 4 answers to each question, go with your gut on which one is most like you. All right. Even though for a couple of them, as you're going to see in a minute, for a couple of them, they're really close. The difference between B and C is really similar. You got to pick the answer that best matches you. All right. All right. Let's give this thing a shot. You ready? Number 1. When talking to a classmate or coworker, A, maintain eye contact the whole time. B, alternate between looking at the person and looking down. C, look around the room a good deal of the time. I love that, a good deal. It's very subjective. And then D, try to maintain eye contact, but I have to look away from time to time. So you see how similar they are. That's what this test is about. Pick the one that goes with you. And working with others. All right, just write that letter down for the first one. Okay. Now I'm gonna move on because the test says don't overthink it. We can go back and redo any of them we need to in a second. Number 2, if I have an important decision, whatever that might be, to make, A, think it through completely before I decide. B, go with my gut. C, consider the impact that will have on other people before I decide. Hey, we just started this. We're on number 2, 1 through 18. I'll show you number 1 in a second at the end. Pick your answer for this. Or D, run it by someone whose opinion I respect before deciding. Which one is you? All right. What do you think? Number 3. My office or work area at home has mostly A, family photos and inspirational items displayed. B, inspirational art posters and awards displayed. C, graphs and charts displayed. Or D, calendars and project outlines displayed. And some of you, as I was, the first time I ever did this, I was like, well, mine doesn't have any of that. What would it have if I had those things? So pick the one that most closely matches you. That's what the test says to do. All right. Write that letter down. Number 4. If I'm having a conflict with a coworker or a classmate, A, try to help the situation along by focusing on the positive. B, stay calm and try to understand the cause of the conflict. C, try to avoid discussing the issue that caused the conflict entirely. Or D, confront the issue right away so I can get it resolved as soon as possible. What most closely matches you? All right. Number 5. When I talk on the phone to a classmate or coworker, A, keep the conversation brief and focused on the purpose of the call. B, spend a few minutes chatting before we get down to business. C, I'm in no hurry to get off the phone and don't mind chatting about personal stuff. Or D, try to keep the conversation as brief as humanly possible. Which one are you? All good. So which one is you? Number 6. If the classmate or coworker is upset, however you define upset. A, ask if I can do anything to help. B, leave them alone because I don't want to intrude on their privacy. C, try to cheer them up and help them see the bright side. Or D, feel very uncomfortable and hope they get over it soon. Okay. All right, third of the way there. Number 7. When I attend interactive class meetings, I A, sit back and think about what's being said before I offer my opinion. B, put all my cards on the table so my opinion is well known. C, express my opinion enthusiastically and listen to those of others. Or D, try to support the ideas of other people in the meeting, but I am not saying anything. All good, just which one are you? All right. All right, number 8. When I am making a presentation in front of a group, however big that group might be, I am often entertaining, humorous. B, am clear and concise. C, speak relatively quietly. Or D, am direct, specific, and sometimes loud. Which one are you? Or most closely matches you? Write that letter down for number 8. All right, number 9, about halfway there. When a coworker or classmate is explaining a problem to me, I try to understand and empathize on how they're feeling. B, look for the specific facts pertaining to their situation. C, listen carefully to the main problem so I can find a solution. Or D, use my body language and my voice to show them that I understand. Okay. Halfway there. Number 10. When I attend class, I get bored if the instructor moves too slowly. B, try to be so supportive of the instructor because I know how hard their job is. Want the instructor to be entertaining as well as informative. Or D, try to look for the logic behind what the instructor is saying. If you can find any logic. Why are we talking about it? A, B, C, or D? What do you think? All right. Number 11. When I want to get my point across to a classmate or coworker, I listen to their point of view first, then express my ideas gently. B, strongly state my opinion so that they will know where I stand. C, try to persuade them without being too forceful. Or D, simply explain the thinking and logic behind what I'm saying and leave it at that. What do you think? What is you? Number 12. When I'm late for a meeting or an appointment, when you are late, because there's another question similar to this in a minute. But when you are late for a meeting or appointment, you, A, don't panic, but call ahead to tell them I'm going to be late. B, feel bad about keeping the other person waiting. C, get very upset and rush to get there as quickly as possible. Or D, apologize profusely when I arrive. Now, for me, I could do all four of them actually. And so I had a little difficulty with this one for myself. I had to really think about these 4 and say, which one is most like me? Which one agrees the most with your motivation? Okay. Number 13. I set goals and objectives for class and at work that A, I think I can realistically obtain. B, I think I can obtain and that are challenging. C, are goals that I need to achieve that are a part of a bigger objective. Or D, are goals that will make me feel good when I achieve them. I'll tell you this story. I have a friend that he says, I always start my day, and this kind of relates to some of the stuff you were doing, Isaac, with working with the students. He says, I always start my day with something really, really simple so that I can put it on my list and then knock it out right away. Like respond to this simple email and then boom, I get it done so that I feel like I achieved something. I said, that makes a lot of sense. It builds momentum. It makes us feel good. We got that done. And there was a study that said there's something that happens when you cross out something on a list. You know, literally there's a chemical thing that happens when you X it out or check it off, which to me now I do an electronic calendar and I just hit delete and it's gone. But there's something about that. Crossing it off, you know. All right. Number 14. When explaining a problem to a coworker or classmate whom I need help from, this is the kicker. You need something from them. A, explain the problem in as much detail as possible. B, will exaggerate the problem to make my point. C, try to explain how the problem makes me feel. Or D, explain how I would like the problem to be solved. What do you think? Which one's close to you? Four more to go. 15. If classmates or coworkers are late for an appointment with me. So now it's the other one. It's not you being late, it's they're late for an appointment with you. Do you, A, keep yourself busy by working and making phone calls while I wait for them to arrive? Do you assume they were delayed a bit and don't get upset? Do you call to make sure that you have the correct information? Or do you get very upset that they're wasting your time? This one was a tough one for me too. $16. When I am behind on a project and I feel pressure to get it done, I A, make a list of everything I need to do and in what order and by when. B, block out everything else and focus on the task at hand. C, become anxious and have a hard time focusing on my work. Or D, set a date to get the project done by and go for it. Which one closely matches your viewpoint? $17, one more after this. I don't know what it means when they say verbally attacked. There's a lot of different things I guess that could mean, but when I am verbally attacked by a classmate or coworker, I A, tell them to stop it. B, feel hurt, but usually don't say anything about it. C, ignore their anger and try to focus on the facts of the situation. Or D, let that person know in strong terms that I do not like their behavior. Which one most closely matches you? Depends on the person. I know I've had folks say that to me. What depends on the person? I agree, but it's tough, you know, in general. Which one most closely matches you? Okay. And then the very last one, I'm 18. When I see a classmate or coworker that I have not seen in a while and I like them, I A, give them a friendly hug. B, greet them, but I don't shake their hand or touch them in any way. I wondered how COVID messed with this as we were going through that a couple years ago. C, give them a firm but quick handshake. Or D, give them an enthusiastic handshake that lasts a long, long, long time. That's what the test says. 3 longs. That's a long time. I had a nice older lady not too long ago, shook my hand and we were talking a little bit. It was one of those, I thought about this test literally because I was like, well, how do I got to move away here. She still had my hand there. I was like, well, it's good to be, it's great to meet you. This is great. All right. So, let's go. She was the D right here. That's for sure. It was a long time.
Fancy number 17 and 1.
Sure thing. There's 17. Verbally attacked. I hope it never happens to you, but if it does, which one are you? And I'm going to take you back to 1. Anybody else need to see anything? Do 11. Okay, I'll scoot on back to 11 and then we'll do 1. Okay. You okay, Rahel?
Yes.
All right. Take you to 11. Jesse, what do you think? Get that point across. I'm sure it depends on the person too, but always that it depends thing,
And also see number 7.
Sure. Let's take it to number 7. And then we'll do number 1. All right, number 7. And then we'll do number one. And then here's what I want you to do. I'll give you a handout. On this handout, I just want to point out to you, each number has letter A, B, C, and D. I want you to circle the letter that you responded to next to your number, but realize that letter A for number one is not the same as letter A for number two. So just be aware, each number, the letters change. So just be on the lookout for that. So I'm gonna hand that to you. Once you circle the letter, it goes along with each number, and then I want you to tally up your answers because there are 4 styles, and this will tell you your dominant style of the 4. And I wouldn't be surprised, I wouldn't be surprised if we have any ties in here. Some of you may have a tie for 2 styles. We'll see what happens. I know a couple of y'all have done this before. I want to see if it's changed at all. For me, it has never changed. Every time I've done this, it's always stayed the same. But some folks say, you know, I did this twice and mine changed. We'll see what you get. Tally it up there. And then I'm going to tell you about the styles. And then I'm going to ask you to make a decision about your style if you do have a tie. That's one of the rules of the test. See how many drivers and analyticals and expressives and amiables we have in here. And you see if y'all can guess what my style is once I tell you about them. All right. Yeah, well, that way. What your dominant style is. Mhm.
I have 3 matching.
Do you really? Time 3-way? No kidding, real. How about it? What you got, Sigrid? Ties?
No, friends, same, so.
Say, okay, interesting. Sometimes folks will say it changes. It was in the fall you did it, right? So it
Yeah.
wasn't that long.
I think it's more
Okay.
strongly that.
Is it?
I
Okay.
remember it was like-
Okay. 3-way tie though, real. Wow, okay. I'm gonna explain the 4 styles to you, and then you have to decide. That's what the
Which
test
one?
says. You have to, once you know what they mean, you have to decide.
Oh, great.
Right? We're gonna use this to pair up on something. Okay. How we doing? Yeah, it's interesting. It's been a little while ago. Interesting how that. I'll explain this in a second with this. It's way down there on the line. That's. Y'all got it? Okay. Let's talk about these 4. And again, the test says to the facilitator, maybe, all of these are great. So every one of these styles we need in a team. And in teaching with animals, some of you may remember, we built teams based on these styles. The ideal team has one of each style. So 4 people, each style represented makes an ideal team. Everybody's strengths are represented. Analyticals is, I'll just tell you, so you'll know right off the bat, I'm not strong analytical, just a little analytical. I'm very jealous of this because I don't have a lot of these tendencies. These are the folks that are going to be our rule followers, figuring out the ins and outs of making sure we don't break a rule or a guideline before we do something that might disqualify us when we're submitting a grant or a proposal. We need analytical folks because they tend to be very cautious. They tend to be very in tune with structure. They tend to sometimes think that if we're spending too much time talking about it, we're not getting it done. Let's just get it done. So the idea of being too involved in a team might seem counterproductive to them. Love to ask questions, love to sometimes just do it themselves and then come back together again with the group and talk about how things went. If you talk about a problem solver, analytical folks are great problem solvers. So we need these folks in our teams and such a valuable skill to have. So if you're an analytical, maybe you're tied for analytical and you're wondering, am I a dominant analytical? That's what the test says an analytical person is like in general. Those are the wonderful features of an analytical. Here are the wonderful features of a driver. And typically, the way that we talk about these, drivers and analyticals, you may find you have a strong tendency for driver and analytical, or the other two together, expressive and amiable. So drivers and analyticals tend to really get along very well together. Again, very much from a driver standpoint, like to be alone, but likes to be in control if they are in a team. If we're talking about it, we're not doing it, and they don't like that. They don't like inaction. They want to be able to do things instead of talk about them. The thing about a driver versus an analytical is an analytical is going to follow our rules. A driver is going to say, you know what, we can bend the rules a little bit. They like to be in charge of stuff and have a little bit more freedom to do that. And great thing about a driver, and my wife is this way, they tend to be very competitive, which can be a great thing. We need somebody that's wanting to raise the bar and do an extra good job to win at what we're doing. Think about what happens when you put a driver together with the other two styles that I'm going to talk about. Is drivers sometimes think, you know what, we're spending a lot of time talking and this mushy feelings kind of stuff. Let's get down to business and get it done. They see this focus on feelings as being not as valuable use of our time. Great at getting something done on their own, don't need to be around others, they can get it done themselves. Really, really good at delegation. Really, really good. We need drivers. This is a great skill set as well. So analyticals and drivers tend to see a lot of those two together. If you're a strong driver, you tend to be a strong analytical. That's one group. Here's the other side of the coin. Amiables and expressives. We're going to talk about that. Typically, we see amiable and expressive styles together. Here's the amiable. My great-grandmother lived to be 99, almost 100, missed it by about 2 months, turning 100. I think about amiable and I think about my great-grandmother. I mean, we want to make sure before we get down to business that everybody's got plenty to eat, that the room temperature's good, that everybody's comfortable. We take some time to catch up on family and the kids and all this before we get down to business. That's important. Relationships, interpersonal stuff, really, really important to this. And they can be perceived by drivers and analyticals as being really slow at getting stuff done because they're focused on relationships. That's something that they do. That's totally okay. Loves to, I like this, the test says they're an active listener. You know what an active listener is? You can tell they're listening. You know, that kind of very much the nonverbals and things. Can really put on a salesperson hat when they need to. Expressives can do this as well, but they're really good at getting others to get on their team and support that idea that they may have. This idea of them working slowly is definitely how an analytical or driver would perceive an amiable. You're taking too much time because you're focusing on a relationship and not getting it done. Amiables are great counselors. They're great at when something's wrong, they're the person that is going to be focused on feelings and less on doing. So we need amiables on the team as well. of course, as you can imagine. Expressives. Expressives and amiables tend to be together. Drivers and analyticals tend to be together. Take a look at it. The difference between amiable and expressive is expressives tend to do things a little bit faster because they've got 20 ideas, but only one idea might work. They've got 20 ideas. A driver and analytical might have 2 ideas and both of them are awesome. Both of them will work. The expressive might have a lot of ideas, but just shotgunning stuff out there. Loves to be involved, doesn't want to be alone, tends to exaggerate a lot about stuff. They'll put that salesperson hat on and really tell a story about something. Has a lot of ideas, a lot of them might not work because it's part of their dream. They like to dream a lot and come up with these ideas. Tends to be very sporadic, kind of all over the place from time to time, wants to be part of something and really can be good at that salesperson, that persuasion. Yes, we need to do this and here's why. Very that much that energy for people is right there. You can see how amiables and expressives, drivers and analyticals go together. You can see how an expressive and a driver might clash a little bit. How an analytical and an amiable might clash a little bit. Now that you've known about these, those of you that have a tie, the test says think about those. And on the back of your handout, if you flip that thing over, I put a little table in the back that's got a summary of these kind of things on it for you to look at. So if you do have a tie, make sure that you figure out what your dominant style is, right? If you don't know already. Let me ask y'all, what do you think yours truly is?
Expressive.
All over the place, that's right. Oh, it's definitely expressive, amiable, that's right. Expressive was number 1, amiable is right behind it. Driver and analytical are way further down the list. Yeah, but that's me. Yeah, very good. So we know each other. That's great. So now that you know what your style is, just curious to know. So I like to just do this. How, I mean, if y'all don't mind sharing, it's just, we're a small group, but we can tell. I'm just curious, how many analyticals, that's your dominant style. How many analyticals do we have in here? Dominant was analytical for you.
Is the dominant anything over 5 or just stuff that's tied to the same number?
It's the dominant, according to the sheet, is anything over 5, but the most dominant is your top score.
Okay.
Your top, was it analytical for you?
Yeah.
Was it really interesting? So 1 analytical, that's it. Do you really? All right, so now here's what the test says. Now that you know about the 3, you got to make a call. You got to, for yourself, say, this is what my dominant is. What of those on the back most matches summer? This is me. So we know we got an analytical. We got 1 analytical. How many drivers? Anybody a dominant driver? Sigrid, I remember this from last time. You ever call in our class? Typically, we have the fewest number of drivers. When you look at 100 people, you might have 7 or 8 drivers. I mean, it's a very, very low percentage, but that's a great thing. We need that. So 1 dominant driver. We do driver. Okay, so 2 drivers of our group today. That's wonderful. That's unique in a small group to have 2. We're fortunate. This is great. So 1 analytical, 2 drivers. How about amiable is our dominant? 1, 2. Okay. And then our others are expressive. So we've got 7 in here. So 3 expressives. Okay. 2 expressives. Oh, there we go. Well, me too. I'm going to call myself that too. Yeah. Look at that. That's interesting. So it's Isaac, we're sticking with analytical. What were you tied with?
Well, analytical I had 8 and then amiable I had 5.
Interesting. So you were both up there. That's interesting to have analytical and amiable. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. But you're fortunate. This is really a nice makeup. When you think about the small number of folks in our group, I'm actually really surprised we had everybody covered. A lot of times when I do this with a small group, I don't have any drivers. And I'll share this with you. If I do a college of education, if I do a thing with teachers, where do you think most elementary school teachers, I'll share that. Where do you think they are? Amiable's number 1. I mean, for elementary K through 5, even when you get into high school, believe it or not, even chemistry teachers in high school, I've had report being amiable. It's just interesting to look at where everybody is. So here's what I want to do. I want to take this stuff. I want to take our analyticals and our drivers, right? There's three. I want to take our amiables and our expressives. We'll just call it four minus me. In ELC, there is and I want you to take a look at this, just with a kind of a fun idea in your mind as you look at this. There is I'll just go ahead and tell you, a very elaborate lesson plan that is in ELC in the week 9 folder that I'd love for us, I know we've got some of our laptops, for us to pull up. And once we get that pulled up, I want us to put our amiables and our expressives together and our analyticals and our drivers together into kind of 2 groups. And I want you to look at this. Okay, I'm going to tell you, and I just want to let you know this. This is way more involved than we will do in this class, but this is an example of a very detailed lesson plan. I'd love for you to take a look at Tree SI. That's online. Amiables and expressives, let's all get together wherever we are. And let's put our analyticals and drivers wherever we are. And I want you to spend 14 minutes reviewing this. Read it over, take a look at it. I want to know what you like and what you don't like. And we're going to compare amiables and expressives with analyticals and drivers and see what you think about this. And I'll just tell you, this is way over the top for what we're going to do in here. This is just a really detailed lesson. Some of you will like, some of you will not. We'll see what you think. All right, so let's first find our places where we're going to sit. We'll put our drivers, analyticals together, amiables, expressives together. I'm going to put 14 on the clock once we get together. I want you to take a look at this. I've got my own thoughts as an expressive about this, and I want to hear what you have to think about it too. This is an actual lesson that was, I'll just tell you, used in Florida. I won't tell you what part of Florida, but used in Florida. Give you a chance to take a look at that. Take a look at that. What do you think? The personality tests and stuff. Oh, did you do it? Yeah, yeah. Well, then you're true to yourself then. Yeah, that idea, who you are, you know who you are. That's good. All right, I'm gonna put 14 on the clock if we need it, gang. And we're gonna give you a chance to take a look at that. I'm interested to hear what you think. And have a recorder for your group. Just kind of write down positives and not so positives for that lesson plan. What do you think about it? And I'm actually really looking for feedback on this too, by the way. So I'm very interested in what you think. What do you think? And Jesse, you're blue? Yeah. I can't remember. Is orange,
Orange is eccentric.
You're like assertive person.
okay. 'Cause I think when my wife did, she was more driver in this, more orange, you know, as a nurse, she's very, you know, and I'm over here just a pushover, just,
Yeah.
oh, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. Interested to hear what you think about this. A little forestry lesson. That's cool. Hey. My own feelings about this. It'll be fun to compare drivers analyticals with amiables and expressives. What you think about this? Take a look at everything. Objectives, questions, content, background, terms. We put it all in here. Team. Oh, did you? No leaves, right. buds and bark and smelling the bark and see what, oh, yeah. Perfect, perfect. I taught dendrology fall and spring for a number of semesters, and I will say fall was always easier to teach because we started off on a positive note. Spring was tough because we didn't have anything. They had to know the buds, they had to know the bark. Branching, opposite, alternate, internet. Once you get some ideas down, I'm gonna ask this, we're gonna kind of write out things that we liked and didn't like, and I'm gonna try to group them by driver analytical, expressive amiable, and see where we are. Tell you what we know from the research that makes this actually makes it
Yeah.
really good. And don't be afraid to be critical. You will not offend me. I was part of a team of people that put this together, so we'll just let us have it. I have my own thoughts about it, but. Notice the audience. Upper middle school, 7th to 8th grader.
Are we evaluating the structure of this plan or?
Anything. How it's laid out, how it looks, what's in it, anything you want, Simon. I'll share with you 5 things about it that I will say when y'all are done. We know relate to the likelihood of a teacher using a lesson plan. They are in here. There are 5 really good things about this that I'll tell you about when you're done. But anything, pictures, I mean, anything. Anything. Could even be, some of you may have already noted, the margins or lack of margins on some of the pages could be really bothering you, and that could be something you say. Yeah. Formatting, the way it's laid out.
But it's just, it seems.
When you're ready, what you like and what you don't. Yeah. Anything at all.
I agree, but it's. This is like an outline.
Yeah. Make sure that's all.
How they
Yeah.
kind of here.
Well, and also, there's more time devoted to the
Like area here.
outside, which is class.
It has.
Yeah. If you're. Yeah. You're saying that was already, like, in the beginning of the. Putting it in, you know, like, every game or that, it's. This is what I still have, what is pretty good.
I think it was time response, time, that's your potential response.
Yeah.
You mean like it's too much time for just including.
A little bit of both, really. Like 15 minutes just to wrap up, I feel like it's good. Also, some of it just feels like a little bit overly fair.
That's a good point to bring up, Sig. Does it allow for flexibility? No, does it, and even, Chloe was mentioning time. Is it realistic that this stuff could be done? Is that too much time or is it too little time? I mean, think about.
I just wanna know what the individual is telling their versus, I don't have to do all of this.
It's something.
Seems like a lot.
Yep. Good.
I was thinking of the question. Not all of them are.
I don't know, 12-year-olds are a lot more confident than people get this kind of fun,
Yeah.
I don't see the reason why.
Yeah, I guess it's creative part. I think when they get to the bottom and it's more about like drafting the data and all of that, I see that I want kind of those like baby like that. That's kind of supposed to be with me like gosh. Yeah, I just feel like the big one is that it's also allowed them to kind of just
Yeah.
days, but I don't think that's what
Right, like I thought, the other, but like, these are very small.
I know.
Less dirty.
That puts like, like how to use a billboard.
Huh?
That has,
Yeah.
that has like a. Also, I think, I'm pretty sure that they're out there.
Yeah, they still use Biltmore sticks in, even the national FFA forestry competition, they still do, even though, today we use a clinometer or a laser hypsometer, you actually use a laser to do it. They still use a Biltmore stick to get number of logs, they still do, yeah. But I overheard what you're saying, I agree that I looked at this, I don't know how to use a Biltmore stick, and I mean, I know, but if I didn't know,
Yeah, this is. Look at the explain for the tree is a good amount.
Something you learn, like literally.
At the bottom, it says explain it, except for the people.
And if you want to recreate in my budget.
And then that's a picture of it. It's with you, and I like.
Right, like people like already,
Yeah.
they do that on their own, they don't need to have a phone, that's fine.
Yeah.
But how do they know they need to give your music tree ID if they don't have that middle school teacher to show them?
I think you get very excited about trees and tree ID without amount of this trees.
Like this,
Like the importance of trees, like, oh, here are all these different types of trees, ones are that one. 5 of these.
It's really just super.
That's overwhelming, if you don't reach that. Yeah, I'm saying if they don't have trees, when I don't know why I did, over at least I'd be a tree.
good discussion I'm hearing, about 3 minutes to go, this is
Both
great.
of my brothers are in 8th grade, and
For fun.
they would.
I mean, the only thing I can think of.
It also doesn't give you.
Even then, like, you don't need all this.
I just feel like there's more important things.
If I remove external barriers, the teacher's gonna use this, probably, that's a good thing, I mean, if we don't have the answers, well, what am I gonna do in terms of my answer key, that's right.
Like it says, show an example of a different tree and a different tree. Then it doesn't show you.
Excellent stuff, about 2 minutes. Finish up that short list of good and not so good, and we'll talk about it. I'm hearing some great stuff.
Especially if they did, now, if they did cool stuff, like, things that.
Very good, very good.
They did, oh, wrong map, oh, free, or something that was. Fun, or like, the kids now all want to do crazy stuff.
Or,
You can like.
Corey, I was looking at that thinking, main discussion, it says 30 minutes at the bottom of page 7. And then I go over to, all the way over to the, well, yeah, to the top of page 10, when it says outdoor. I literally looked at that thinking, that is 30 minutes.
Well, that's what I was talking about, the bottom of, the bottom of page 7 or 9. With the lecture part 2,
Uh-huh.
that's included in the 30.
Yeah. Yeah. So is that realistic to expect all that could happen in 30 minutes?
A lot of it is just kind of.
And also, does it ever say that you demonstrate? Not yet. You explain it to the students at the beginning, and then you put them in the groups, and then you send them off, and they never demonstrate.
Good point.
It's actually like 25
Yeah.
minutes to measure and.
Like, you can talk
for
about
function is not. If you're getting a 12-year-old less than 3 minutes. Especially if you're really 12-year-old, it's not like more than 12 years together.
Good point. That's right. That's right.
Well, no, you're gonna have like 4 or 5 groups that are like rushing to get it done, because they want their, and you've got the other half that are gonna.
I think I like that. I like that. I like all of that.
I think we can do, yeah. That's one that could each day.
All right, so
Middle school.
that's right. That's why I emphasized that at the very start. I said, pay attention to this is 7th and 8th graders on this thing. Okay. So let's start with the positive. I know you're surprised by me starting with the positive, but we're gonna start with the positive. And like I said, gang, I'm part of a team of folks that I helped a little to put this together. And I have my own, by the way, the title was all me. I don't know if you're surprised by that, but I came totally up with the title. Instead of CSI, TRI. Let's talk about what you liked. Maybe the title was one of the things. Talk to me about something, and I want you to remember amiables, expressives, drivers, analyticals, right? I mean, just kind of say, talk to me about stuff you like. Let's just, and pay attention to where stuff's coming from as folks are sharing. What are analyticals, drivers saying? What are amiables, expressives saying? See if we see any trends here. What'd you like?
We liked the pictures in the beginning.
Yeah.
I
Good.
think that helps make it engaging. You know, there's like the little leaf, you've got your CSI guide. In the first couple pages, at least, there's more little graphics or like kind of visuals of what the person's talking about. Really, there's that towards the end. But
Okay, and definitely in the start. And I overheard Chloe's team over there saying stuff that changed the further they got into this too. So the start was great. Further into this, it lost some of the stuff. Okay, very good. Others, what'd you like?
Like the theme,
Okay, so the overall theme of it. Okay,
but yeah, the opening question from the teachers, what does a detective do?
Yeah.
That's fun.
the interest approach, the hook, you know, and that idea of we're going out on this crime scene trying to figure clues out. Okay, cool, good. Other things.
I like the board.
Okay.
Except that I like how the topics, like the environmental topics are long-term. Like it talked about maybe pursuing a career in environmental management. How can you see future?
So the topics are, Chloe, you getting a kind of a relevance thing for the audience, or what do you mean by it?
Well, it's just more than, like, it's, if a student wants to ask, like, oh, why am I learning this? Like,
Okay,
is this actually gonna be used somehow?
okay,
And be like, whoa. You can use it in conservation, you could use it like in your future career, if you're working in environmental management.
okay. Good.
Allow people to debate, because I think that's fun stuff.
Okay, that's good. So that, and that's good. So Summer, when you say the topics are bad,
I'm saying, yeah, like, and you have these things right now, so you answer questions. To just be able to answer the question without having to, on every single word you want to say that.
So the detailed level of this lesson, the scripting kind of,
Yeah,
okay,
it gets overly scripted with that.
okay, good, okay, good. So I'm gonna, okay, I'll say that's good. All right. Good, what else? You like,
I like that they're gonna work, like, students be working in groups instead of.
Okay.
You know,
so the teamwork focus, that's good. You know, I'll say too, I liked, I heard some folks talking, I'll just share, I like the idea, of course, of the objectives. There are learning objectives and they are measurable. They're quite detailed, so I like that it had good objectives. And that's something I'll add as an expressive, you know, they're measurable objectives.
You put the scripted on the light.
You didn't like how scripted it was.
Oh, thank you, Summer, hang on. Thank you for sharing. Make sure I get this. And we both agreed, both sides of the room agreed that the scripting was something we didn't like. In a way, I'll say too, I agree because it limits our creativity as an educator in terms of what we're doing. Good, good. Other things you liked? I got one more I gotta say that I like. I'll wait to hear what y'all think. Anything else you liked?
I like that it's pretty hands-on for the kids. They're doing a lot of it on their own, not watching the teacher do it. Those are the-
That's great. That's great. Isaac?
I think it's good that it includes like a time aspect. But I don't agree that the times are good,
Okay,
but I think including that helps give the teacher like focus, like what's the most important parts. And what needs to be spent more time on, and stuff like that.
okay. And I agree. I will say that I look at the time thinking about 7th and 8th graders. And I just think there's no way that we could get this done in that amount of time. Yeah, and do a good job with it, you know, so I thought the reality or the time's accurate. I would agree. I think that's a negative. That's cool. Cool. Anything else you like? I got one more, I'll tell you that I like. What'd you say, Sam?
We're gonna fill up the do not like.
Oh, that's good, that's good. I will say, if you look back toward the end, after you get to the end of the table aspect of that, I don't know if you like the way that table was set up. There are evaluation suggestions for each of the objectives. And I really like that. That there's a way to determine if we have met each one of those things. Kind of getting back to this idea of evaluation tonight. That's a cool thing, I thought. And I thought the evaluations were somewhat creative, which is good. All right, so hit me with some stuff you didn't like. We got 2 things so far. Hit me with some other ones.
Lack of clear headings,
Okay? I'll just say lack.
random highlighting throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. That was not just me. That was
Poorly
the
designed
team.
chart.
What do you mean, the chart?
I do not like the chart.
That
It-
table, kind of the way
I
that.
just embrace that entire thing.
Okay.
Like the margins on it are weird. The fact that it spreads over like 3 or 4 pages makes it very difficult to read. I don't think it's broken up in a very effective way.
Okay. You know, when you think that's good, when you
I
think
don't like
about, you think about a teacher being able to use this, you and I would have to print this all out and lay all the pieces of paper in front of me at the front of the room so I could follow it. Or I'd have to do it from the top of the room to the bottom in a row so I could follow the columns. I mean, it's difficult to interpret. I'm glad you brought that up. Good. Tables, margins, hard to read. What else?
We said that we liked most of the activities, but that We would rather have this as like a unit or like a week-long unit than one single lesson.
Okay, so too much for one lesson?
We were also
Okay.
thinking this was like a multi-day.
Yeah.
They can self-reflect after each objective. I think that might be a better way to actually understand the whole project.
And what a great thing to bring up too, because we have mentioned, when we did our airplanes out in the hall, when we did our paper towers, the power of reflection in the world of experiential learning.
Like, if we had the evaluation aspect in it too, it would really make it a whole unit. There's a whole unit worth of information within.
Yeah.
document.
Because if they do it in a day and then they expect to take a quiz,
Yeah.
I think that might be.
Too much.
Yeah,
It's also, I mean, it's multiple parts, because you have to do the free thing, go outside, measure the trees, get in groups, that itself is a whole thing, because these are middle schoolers.
Think about moving,
Then you're supposed to come back in and get on a program and graph the data and interpret it and all of that. That is its own separate task and achievement.
yeah,
plus the
Yeah.
assessment kills the productivity. Like even like how you said before, like, you know how quizzes and tests take a stress.
Yeah.
For students, so they're able to learn much better without such a stress.
that's great.
I
So-
would think even if you made it into like a competition, like who can ID the most trees or something along those lines. Instead of setting like a standard, if they had to have at least this many. Yeah, versus this many deciduous, that. Cause if you don't reach a standard, as opposed to having a competition, you can feel like you didn't learn, even though you did get a takeaway.
Yeah. That's right. That's a very good point. And realistically thinking, for the amount of time they have exposure to this, and I heard Isaac mention, this may be the first time they're exposed to this. Chloe brought up the idea of Biltmore stick. I mean, you know, and the longer the years go on, as you can imagine, I mean, middle school students aren't as engaged in the outdoors as they used to be. So when we're going outside, we talk about noise in here, distractions. Think about literally the noise that's going to happen when we go outside, the distractions, the bugs. Is this poison ivy? Is that bee going to sting me? Is that, so as a teacher, you got to minimize all that. So everything that you're saying is so great because it's under this umbrella of, is it realistic? Can we get this done? And can we have fun doing this thing? Can we teach these kids in a fun way? Give me some more. What else?
We over here said like the key questions are open-ended at the very beginning.
Okay.
Could have one of these questions have one single answer, and if students don't know the answer, it's kind of confusing. Like, I was always taught the key question should be very much like very open-ended versus like a specific.
You know, I know Chloe has been in the classroom teaching before, and even if you look at standards that are used in lessons, the standards are really wide open. So, and they're done that way for a reason. So a teacher can creatively figure out how am I going to meet the standard. And there's that idea of creativity, ownership. Let that teacher take this where they want to take it. Really interesting point there, Jim. Isaac, you were going to say?
Yes, that kind of talked about it with the, how much information, but it also seems like a lot of stuff not really relevant to like 7th and 8th graders.
Okay.
To kind of piggyback off of that, Summer had brought up a pretty good idea of trying to tie in more like electronic techie stuff, because, you know, kids these days, and you mentioned like drone mapping of the trees and kind of relating the core values of the lesson into something a little bit more relevant, future, yeah, exciting.
I think the entire thing is pointless. And yes, if we do something that is more, I don't know if I'm doing this. If it's something more with the drones, or actually, this is what deciduous trees do, this is what blah trees do, instead of, oh, this is how I use a specific tree, this is how you measure this tree.
Something to make it more appealing to the average 12-year-old, because
Like, I don't wanna know that.
yeah.
I don't care.
So it-
12-year-old me is not sitting there, it's like, boy, oh boy, I really wish I knew if this is a coniferous tree or not. You know, that's not something.
it kind of gets back to what our team over there was saying, the relevance of this, what's in it for me, why learn this, what are we doing this for? You know, that sounds like what you're saying, some of that's, what is the point? Yeah.
I mean, if you want people to be excited about trees, don't think this is a good way to do that. And
Okay.
honestly, middle schoolers might be not.
Turned off of
Yeah,
trees.
turn off of this.
Or even
Sure.
just some, like a competition, just something to make it more geared towards them. Because the way it's formatted is like something you would set up for people who have signed up for like a tree measuring course.
Yeah.
As opposed to something to engage seventh graders who are being forced to be in this tree measuring course.
And it really kind of gets back to, I go back to the key questions. Some people call essential questions in lesson plans. If the key questions related to careers in forestry and natural resources, in STEM, maybe we could make this a little bit more appealing and fun, and that was our goal as a teacher. But right now, when I look at the key questions as a teacher, I pick this up and go, I'm going to consider using this in my class. And I go, well, I don't know, unless I can tie this to a standard, I don't know why I would do this. You know, that's which is what you were saying. I don't know why I would do this. Very interesting, especially if I don't know a thing about trees. This level of detail, really high, really high. Other things you didn't like. There's plenty up here. This is great.
You get like the amount of detail
Mhm.
or the structure.
Uh-huh. So that table kind of aspect, some of the way it's laid out.
Yeah, and like the headings change.
Yeah.
Basic.
Yeah. And that's kind of that, I'll just call it formatting. I mean, overall, yeah. So I did a series of focus groups about this very lesson with some folks in Florida, some teachers, middle school teachers. And one of the biggest things was reality, is what I called it, was brought up, and so many of you said that. They said, we can't get this done, even if our kids were excited about it. We can't get this done in this amount of time. I can't do that. And they also said, I don't feel like I have a whole lot of freedom to do what I want to do in this, because this is like too scripted, too detailed. And they said that whole table formatting thing, like you were saying, we can't work with that. So it was really an interesting thing. They said, in fact, several of the teachers mentioned this. I love the words teachable moments. I love to talk about those. They even said that. How am I going to integrate teachable moments into this? This is so rigid and locked me down. So it was very interesting to pilot test this with that group of teachers. I so appreciate your feedback. And just to let you know what I was doing as y'all were sharing, and I'll make this a little bit bigger now that I think our list is done. So when I was hearing some of y'all say from our amiable and our expressive group, I put a star behind some of those things that an amiable or expressive said. And if it wasn't an amiable or expressive, I didn't say anything. So I just want you to notice, now here's kind of the point. I put you in two different groups, analytical drivers, expressive, amiables. Do you see any pattern to this though? The stars are amiable expressive. The non-stars are analytical drivers. Do you see any pattern?
Created more ideas and fix things on that we didn't like inside versus just listing out everything.
Okay, so that's an idea, and kind of thinking about sometimes amiables and expressives, as I mentioned, have a lot of ideas. And they think, and I don't know if this was true, sometimes they think about the students. And a lot of times when I've done this with teachers, analytical drivers think about the teacher, and they go, I'm not going to do this. Like Summer said, I'm not doing this as a teacher. And amiables and expressives think about their students and how the students will, isn't this interesting? Now, here's the other thing I'm going to say. What'd you say, Summer? Say it one more time. What's,
Nothing.
all right.
Don't worry about it. I was still part of that.
About this lesson plan?
Yeah.
Now, here's the other thing I'm gonna say. So I had a little role in this. Like I said, I will say the objectives I developed for the team, the title I developed, I helped them with the evaluation stuff. I kept my mouth shut with the table. I didn't want to. There was a team of, I'll just say, the University of Florida, you know, we can trash talk University of Florida. There was a team of folks at the University of Florida that did this table, all right? I didn't like it either. But I will say this, one of the things I didn't know how this would work out today, putting our teams together, but I will say this, when I've had other teams of analytical strivers, amiables, expressives, look at this lesson. In general, I see each of our teams contributing equal things to this. It's kind of one of the points I wanted to make. A lot for him.
Oh, I feel like as an expressive social characteristic, I'm putting more towards my characteristic compared to what characteristic they have, they're putting towards their characteristic.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
think that's why,
I see it emerge.
yeah,
You focus on certain things that match your style.
exactly.
Sigrid focus on, were you driver, right? Here's the general consensus. Every time I've done this, it doesn't matter if you're a driver, analytical, expressive, amiable. We see positives and negatives very similarly. The lens with which we look at is different. But in the bottom line, I would say an analytical, are we heavy analytical, Summer?
I was tied for analytics and driver.
And, okay, interesting. The things you're saying are similar to what an amiable and expressive sees. Sometimes it's the way that they're conveyed. That's the difference. It's they see it through the teacher's eyes, they see it through the student's eyes. But they're both conveying similar things. And my point behind this was to get back to the test part. Doesn't matter who you are. You both groups contribute equally, and we need all of you. So I will let you know, there are 5 things in this that are really great, I think. And I want to write them up here on this board because the 5 things that are in this are parts that I am going to ask us to do in here. Actually, next week, we're going to work on this, but I want to let you know now. Let me put this up on the board. Okay. I'm going to put it over here because I don't think y'all can see it where you are. Give me 1 second. This little, oh, my red marker is right there sitting with you guys. So I'm sorry this thing fired us up so much this lesson. It is funny though, isn't it, looking at that? And we can blame our UF folks down there. The table, oh my gosh. And there were so many of them that, oh, yeah, well, they can get this done. Those students can just do this in a couple of minutes in a class period, absolutely. And I'm sitting there going, I don't think so. So I'm just gonna say, there are 5 things about that lesson that, believe it or not, influence whether a teacher will use a lesson or not. There are 5 key things, and guess what? The first thing is the title. It sounds so trivial to say, but we know from research that the title of a lesson drives a teacher to use it or not. Why do you think that is?
It's not interesting. Why are you gonna teach?
In the title alone, I mean, just like looking at a book, you know, you don't judge a book by its title, but we do judge a book by its title. A teacher is going to look at it and go, yeah. And I said to the group, contrary to some of their opinions, we need to give it a fun title. And I threw out the tree SI and they were like, well, that's not so academic. But I think for a teacher, they need to look at it and go, this is a middle school teacher. Wow, that sounds fun. So we do know from the literature that the title of a lesson matters. So I will tell you, for the lesson plan that we're going to create for one of your activities, I call it an activity plan, not really a lesson plan. I promise you, it won't be this level. Don't make a table. Not like that either. We're all going to have a good title. So we're going to have, not only next week are we going to think about a title for our program, a name for our program. We're going to have a nice title for our activity, and that's important. Second thing. Objectives. A great lesson has to convey measurable objectives. And I got to tell you, and I don't know if you're in the same boat as me, when I look at a lesson, and I've seen them, the lesson objectives use verbs that are not measurable. Do you remember from our verbs handout? And the bottom column, the one that we drew the little frowny face by, the Mr. Yuck sticker. If I look at a lesson plan and the verbs are not measurable, I immediately sit it down. Nope, I can't trust this thing because the objectives aren't measurable. Good objectives increase the likelihood that I'm going to use it. That's number 2. Our activity plans will have good objectives, I know. Number 3. I'm going to say a lesson/activity summary. There's a 1 to 2 sentence. What is it that the students are going to do, and how are they going to do it? Why do you think the lesson summary is so important? And this might be like a no kidding, but why do you think that's so important to a teacher?
You need to know what you're gonna be doing overall.
And I got 20 minutes in my planning period before I get to the next class, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. I gotta be able to look at that summary and go, can I do this or not? So from a marketing standpoint, that's huge.
Also, good that the plan that you gave us was a good, 20 pages or so. It's nice to just have a summary that says, this is the goal.
Exactly, right, and this, when you look at this, you have to kind of dig to, on mine, it's page 4 before the lesson summary comes up. I may already be overwhelmed by the time I get to page 4. When I look at this. All right, 2 more things make a great lesson. And I'm so glad to hear this. A good hook. I think the title in a way is kind of a hook. I think the opening questions Jesse brought up is a good one. And you remember the D in salad, right? However we start this thing, we got to bring it back up at the end. A good hook does that for us, and it turns down the noise. Because we have good objectives, I know we will. What do you think this last thing is, though? We've been talking about a little bit today with our drawing. We're going to talk about a couple more techniques in a little bit before we wrap up. What do you think that last thing that makes a great activity plan is?
Evaluation.
Gotta have an evaluation. Gotta have an evaluation. Eval for each objective plan. For each one. Now, if you're good, I know y'all are good. You can have one evaluation, one thing that knocks out multiple objectives. And then wouldn't that be cool? And you're thinking about your participants, hey, this is easier on them. That's a good thing. So those 5 things in the slides up here, and I'm going to show you a template next week. I put a template in ELC for you. These things, the title, the summary, the hook, the objectives, and the evaluation for each are what I just put up on that board. So there's a neat little template that's in ELC that we're actually going to work with next week. So when we come together next week, we're going to open up this template. It's a Word document. And we're going to start filling it in. And that Word document is going to come in as Pie Part 2. That's like 80% of your Pie Part 2 is that Word document. So it's like a fill in the blank thing. But it's going to walk you through these 5 parts. It's what I give to teachers. This is not what I give to teachers. I give them this simple template. We're going to complete this together next week. I just want you to know those 5 things are the 5 things that influence the use of a lesson plan, an activity plan. And not to trash talk our colleagues at the University of Florida, but overall, this is over the top, not realistic, too much, too detailed for me as a teacher, for me as an expressive amiable, and it sounds like for our drivers and analyticals as well, this ain't gonna work. So you can have a lot of detail, and some would say more detail the better. Overall, it's not gonna work.
You can't plan for everything, no.
And what about the power of teachable moments and the power of engaging with students? And as a teacher, I would have to do this lesson at least 10 times in a row before I could remember everything that's in it. So I didn't have to be glued to it. Okay, what's next? You can't do that with 10 and 12-year-olds. I mean, you got, so It's funny how that all went down. Okay, so I want, hopefully after the day you feel better about pie part two. Because pie part two, big time, is that lesson plan, that activity plan. I want to show you one more fun thing today. And when I do it, I want you to take a look at something. So it was right before spring break. Y'all did a really neat, remember the bumper stickers we did in here? So that was just like, and let me take a look, I'll show you in a slide in a second, just like the drawings today. That was an opportunity for you to share some data with me in a strip of paper. I got a little series of strips of paper I wanted to summarize for you. I have A through L of them. Bumper stickers. I did a workshop not too long ago about bullying, something that's going on, of course, a lot in schools, unfortunately. We were talking about non-formal teaching methods, and I like to share with you real data, and this is real data from not too long ago. These are actual bumper stickers I got from participants, and I want you to take a look at them with me for a second. In your team, so our analyticals drivers, your amiables expressive. I want you to look at this. I'm gonna hand it to you in a minute. I want you to look at the list of bumper stickers. And I want you to tell me what themes emerged for you. Analytical drivers, amiables expressive. Take a look at them. I asked this group when we were done with the first activity in our series, what are you still uncertain about? What don't you still feel good about with bullying? Helping a child who's dealing with bullying? What do you think? What do you think they, what do you think? I want to see what you can figure out on that today. This is another form of evaluation. Bumper stickers, but now it's, before break, it's what are we doing with it? What are we doing with this data? Let's do that and then let's get ready to land our plane for today. That critique of that lesson plan took it out of us, I tell you. I love it. Y'all brought up great stuff. Take a look at that. What themes emerged for you? I put that little table at the bottom to see if you can put similar letters together. What do you think? It's funny how since we've had kids, even though Miles is just in kindergarten, the more bullying related trainings and things I do and I go to, I think about them differently now because having kids, you go, well, I don't want one of our kids to be doing the bullying, and I don't want them to be receiving any bullying either. So I have a new lens that I look through with this. I'm curious to know what themes you see emerge. If you collected this data like I did in the form of bumper stickers from my participants, what are they saying? Because this is where we're going to end today, is this idea of formative evaluation. What is this telling us? How is this helping us form a judgment? Literally, formative evaluation, form a judgment. Where we go from here. Okay. What are you seeing? Oh, yeah, you got it. Did they give you a template? Yeah. Yeah, and the secret is if it works for you, then it's successful,
Well,
you know?
did this work for me?
Maybe you did it because you had to, if your principal wanted you. Unfortunately, that's what happens. They give you the template. And so in a second, I want you to tell me if you were me looking at this data, what's the next step? This is activity one. End of activity one, they give me some of this data. This is just a snippet. We had a lot more than this, but these are some actual statements on bumper stickers. We looked at this data. We call it qualitative data, written out data. Many of you in your activity plan may say, I'm going to do a bumper sticker. I'm going to do a pre-post drawing. And I want you to know what to do with that data. Same kind of thing with frequency we were talking about with the drawings. This is another frequency deal. How often did certain things come up? So let me ask you, what was the most frequently occurring theme for you? If you're me looking at this data, what's the biggest thing emerging from this for you? What'd you say? What do you think? Just
For me, I see like a lack of validation that what you're going through is something that should be escalated. There's a lot of like, oh, is this enough? Should I get someone involved? What's the difference between this and this? Like, it's very unconfident. Am I the problem? How long can I deal with it? Kind of thing.
I heard you say two things, and I'll make sure you are on the same page as me, and I got it right. How do you define it? And then what to do next? Is that kind of,
Yeah, it's like trying to convince yourself that it's not a big deal when it is.
It's like where to draw the line.
Yeah, hard to draw the line.
huh? Okay.
I answered a lot of the questions I think are relevant to like, what is bullying? How do I know what bullying means? Something like that. And it's like, what does that look like?
Good. Is that the most dominant for others?
I kind of took it into, and it's pretty much the same, along the same lines, but like, kind of like information and questioning. So like information and then planning and then action. So like
Okay.
the questioning is more like the informational, and then like next steps will be planning what's next. And then I said caring as a key action. There's some questions that Joe said the teachers cared, but they didn't really know what to do.
Well, what do I, that's it. What do I do now? Yeah, I worried that same thing when I looked at that. Okay. Anything else most dominant from y'all? Amiables, how about from the driver analytical side?
I also had, my highest for how to identify.
So what does it look like?
Yeah.
You know, that, yeah, absolutely. So here's an interesting thing, just thinking the most dominant thing, and another one of my points for the day. Doesn't matter if you're analytical, driver, amiable, expressive. We're seeing the same kind of stuff emerging, but we're just putting our lens on it. And so that's a great thing. And the fact that you all noticed that defining it versus what to do about it, if we should do anything about it, was exactly what I said. I said two things. I said, recon, what does it look like? How do I know it's happening? And then action, what do I do about it? Do I get mom and dad involved? Do I talk to the bullier? If I do that, is that gonna make it worse for the bullied person? Because now I've gotten involved and they know I'm involved, and so it's a very tricky situation. But I called it recon, then I called it what to do, kind of the action. I wanted to make that point, because I don't want anybody walking out of here going, well, I'm an analytical and I think this way, but I'm an amiable and I think that way. We're all thinking the same stuff. It's just sometimes the way we say it that's different. It's all the same. It's really interesting that you would bring this up. Isn't it cool though, this data? And all this data falls under right here again, frequency. How often did that statement come up that fell underneath recon and action for me? How often, how many of those phrases occur? All under frequency. Now, next time, we're gonna deal with I and D, and I'll define those for you, because there are two other big parts of evaluation that I want us to know. And next time, we're gonna deal with that article that dealt with Christopherson and Christensen, which was those campers, which is really neat. Now, last thing, we go all the way to the end, because we got some fun stuff. Last thing, I want you today, as you walk out of here, to say to yourself, next week, Furman's gonna say to me, what is a potential name for my pilot program? And I wanted to give you an example. Why, not too long ago, I was involved in a program. Give you an example of a name. We called it Keeping It Real. And it was about ATV safety. I don't know how many of y'all have ever rode ATVs before. This, yeah. So, ready to engage in ATV learning is what it was called. I love acronyms, as some of you may have figured out from SALAD and other things in here. We developed this name, and it really gave the program identity. It really gave it a sense of, okay, this is what we're doing, ready to engage in ATV learning. Between now and next week, I want you to think about a name for your program. When we come together next week, we're going to talk about the I and D part. We're going to talk about that Christopherson meeting. We're going to work on your template for your activity together. And we're going to use our social styles to do a little peer review. So it's going to be a lot of little work day kind of a thing next week. And I hope when you walk out of here, you're going to have most of part 2 done. Just want to let you know, we're going to push this back till April 5th. Because on our calendar, it's closer than that. I want us to have more time next week to write it out and be here with you. Do a little peer review. This is something else. I know we got Wows and Whys coming in this week, by the end of the week, gotten a couple of them so far. Just those 2 questions. What happened since part 1? What are your plans for part 2? And then I'm going to send you a link to a Qualtrics, since we're over the halfway point. I'm going to send you, I call it a reality check. How are things going? How are things going for you? What can I do to better meet your needs in here? Instead of waiting until the end and get the course evaluation, but oh my gosh, I wish I could have helped them. I'm going to give it to you now. All right, and give you a chance to share with me what I can do to straighten up. So anyway, gang, I'm glad where we are right now. I'm so glad we've been inside here and out of the pollen. I hope you all have a great evening. I'm so glad the time change allows us to go outside when it's still light out. Good to be with y'all. And can I keep your drawings for next week? I want to bring them back in and look at them again. Thank you, gang. Thank you. And Sigrid, thank you for the food today. Thank you for that, gang. Thank you, thank you. Good to play along. Drawings and bumper stickers. Good formative eval. Great. Plenty of muffins.
I had a lot of bananas.
Sure. Let me grab this. Yeah.
A lot of bananas, and a lot of.
Then we'll get you on the battle that track.
Oh, yes.
So thanks for
You-
being today. I'm glad
when
we
you're
did,
gonna
you know?
imagine
And thanks for
doing
your
the
great
great
content.
thing.
I love that. Hey, I see.
Usually I'm gonna make it secret.
Oh, I see passion in your perspective. That's
On the
great. I love it.
application that I.
I'm holding back some of my passion when I was in Florida going, what? I didn't want to offend anybody that was like, oh my God, I can use this. See you summer. What's going on, Brazil?
Two things. One was I started on a
Okay, good.
So if I do the financial grant and if you want to do like you might have to read it.
Now, remember, big part of 5.2 is that lesson. So that's it. I mean, we'll do it in class next week.
Oh,
most of
okay.
it. So,
So
yeah.
then I'll keep working on it to the class. I'll probably send it to you.
All right.
Revisit it.
Are you thinking for 5.2 for you, are you thinking about fleshing out multiple activities or just that?
So, no, I definitely choose smaller activities.
Okay.
Some PowerPoint, which I'm gonna do like in the session.
Okay.
To be able to learn and the big.
Okay, good
That's-
deal.
that's
Culminating.
Yeah.
Thing, okay.
exactly. So I'll be starting with the first day introduction, having them set up with the activity. and giving them some basic information and like, we just then talking about themselves and what they're there.
Okay,
All that, and eventually like start with some PowerPoint and then get into activities later on. And at the end, I think we should be able to finish up.
there's a crazy squirrel just jumped behind you. Oh, I saw it. Every week he does this. I was gonna ask you, before, are you thinking for your activity plan, is it gonna be for the first activity? Are you thinking for your plan would be for the first one? See you, Jesse, thanks. What do you think?
What do you think?
Like for the whole program,
Yeah.
you've got 4 activities.
Yes.
Is your activity plan just gonna be for the first one, or what are you thinking there?
So, my activity plan, I'm definitely gonna summarize my main activity, which is gonna be the whole program.
Okay.
But I'll also be putting in 2 mini activities, which I'll be summarizing as well.
Okay,
But that's what I had questions about.
okay,
So one of the activities, when you talked about today, how we did with the drawing.
Yep.
That's what something I was planning on doing, maybe do like like before they have any information, make a discussion or give them some type of activity.
yeah,
And then maybe have like a guest speaker or maybe someone that is able to get into more details about the strategies they use and all that. And after that, maybe have a post activity
yeah,
or something and see if like their point of view change
absolutely.
after the guest speaker comes in.
And if you can get them, so like next week, what I'm gonna do when I walk out of class, I'm gonna write down, before I forget, some of the words that I wrote over here that folks said about, when they hear the word evaluation, it comes to mind. I'm gonna write them down.
Okay.
Next week, I'm gonna ask that same question when we're done with class. And then I can compare those pieces of data. I would just say for you, make sure that you can record in some way, like we did with the drawings.
Yeah,
You've got that information. So
exactly.
ask them to write it down, give it to you. You know,
Okay,
so
yeah.
when you do it pre-post, you've got
So
it.
definitely, yeah, so some type of either not a questionnaire, but I was planning on some type of activity.
Yeah,
Or maybe some, like general, like investment type question, and what type of response would they give, like some business type question.
okay,
I've done some activities back in high school, which have given me some ideas, so those were like teamwork activities in my economics class, where like there were some buyers, there were some manufacturers, some sellers, and like the buyers have to get them, equipment from the manufacturer and then give it to the seller to produce the item and then they would sell back
whoa, okay.
to the government and all that. So it was something like that. So I'll contact my professor once because that was a really good activity that I like.
Huh, it was a scenario?
Yeah.
Kinda like you said, okay.
Exactly. So it was like a group activity type.
Yeah.
So each had a different job. While I was in the class, I actually did all of it and try to make the most money. Like it was like
Wow, okay,
but usually like his plan was pretty nice. So I'll definitely see if I could get a hold of that
okay.
activity. So that might be something I'll definitely try to I'll definitely let you know by next week.
Okay.
How that activity plan is.
Oh,
That
shoot.
might be fun.
Do you see that? I see that not only when we talk about the template next week, the lesson plan template. I see not only that scenario being a lesson, but also being a way to evaluate almost, you know how we talk about knowledge, attitude, and behavior, three big things? That's a way to evaluate not only their attitude, their feeling about this topic, but their ability to do something with it. Like, do they have the skills to act on this?
Exactly.
I mean, that's pretty neat. You know, scenarios are a really neat thing to throw out to somebody and say, what would you do? That's pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. I think your hardest thing might be, how much time do you have?
Yes.
Could you get that? How much time would you have with some of these?
So I'm planning on a 6-week program.
Okay.
That's my general idea, like once a week
Okay,
for 6 weeks.
for how
that-
long each time? For like an hour?
Yes, 1 hour
Okay.
each time.
Okay,
I think that should be more than enough.
okay,
1 hour, I could do like a 30-minute, 30 or like basically in the beginning, I'll definitely be on the first plan, I'll be more talkative about the introduction and the activity plan that we'll be doing throughout the semester.
Okay.
But from second week, I'll give like 30 minutes of my time to a PowerPoint or what type of research strategies the company use, how you could appraise a company.
Okay.
And which companies to invest in. And then maybe the next 15 to 30 minutes, I could have all the, like, between all the competition, whoever has the highest profit within the week, they could come and talk about what type of strategies they use, what type of
Oh,
research they use.
wow. Yeah,
And then that way it could help other, participants as well, for the upcoming, like.
oh, yeah, and what you're saying is in line with adult learning theory. I mean, this idea of ownership, getting them to share with each other, that's a really neat
Exactly, yeah.
strategy.
So
Yeah.
that's 100%
Cool.
what I'm planning to do.
That's cool.
I did, talk about it in the pie part one.
Okay.
of it. So I think you'll get a basic idea once you
I'll
read
check it
that.
out.
So
Yeah.
definitely give me
Thanks
any
for help. Oh, yeah, I'll do a track changes is what I do. I go down through it and then, I'll share that with you probably by the time we get together next week. I'll have
Okay.
it done. Yeah, and you'll be able to see that. But
Great.
thanks for doing that. I'm
Of
excited
course,
for
yeah.
you and
I
take it
definitely
seriously.
wanna just put it out,
good.
and I have like high hopes to put it out,
That's
especially
really
for orientation leaders. I feel like I'm confident.
That's cool. Yeah, well, now you see what a program is, a series of activities, and you're thinking realistically, what can I do in an hour? I mean, my point of today with that lesson plan,
Yeah.
that is a lot of stuff. And there are people that think, oh, I can do this in an hour. No, there's no way. You know, so keeping it realistic is a tough thing as a new programmer, but that's one of the things I'm gonna be trying to help you with, is allowing it to be fun, yet just enough that you can teach them something.
Exactly,
You know?
definitely. They do have similar class type program at UGA, but it's really, really based on like all high GPA students. Like you need to be in finance with a 3.5 GPA in Perry School to be able to get into that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to create it for, that's one of the reason my focus group is like non-Terry students,
Okay.
because they need to learn that skill as well. Because that's a long-term skill.
Yeah.
If they start investing from the age of 18, by the time they're like 50, 60, they can retire early as well with that amount of investment.
Wow. You talk about on a logic model and impact, a change in a condition. I mean, that's what you're saying.
Exactly.
That's really neat.
Because I mean, I know like there's only small percentage that would do it throughout, but that's my focus. Like even if there are like 10% or 20% that do it throughout, it would benefit great.
That's great. Well, and selfishly, I'm just concerned that you are getting these skills and how to do that. And you're discovering your own teaching personality and how do you teach this stuff and how do you engage people? And that's an art, you know, and
Yeah,
that's why I spend so much time in here on the teaching side, because big part of program implementation is teaching it. So
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I'm excited about. So then, for the PowerPoint as well, I'll be putting in some, like the overview of the, throughout the week,
Yeah,
what I'm
good.
planning on doing. So
good.
that way you might have a little bit idea as well. I think that would be.
That's great. That's great. Good, good, good. Well, thanks for that. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
you came by today. Good to see you as always. We'll see you
you
back
as well.
here next week. and
Definitely.
We'll, yeah, we're gonna have some more fun with this, lesson plan template next week. We'll build it kind of
Yes.
together, you know, next week. And
Perfect, sounds good. Thank you so much. for
Bill,
having me.
you bet. Be careful going home.
Huh?
What'd you do?
Oh, wow.
Holy cow, look at that. I didn't mean to stand here.
It's like
Look
a
at that.
moving circus.
I thought it was like a bird or something. Yeah, look at those guys up there. Look at like a juggling. Oh, man. I've tried it. You know, Miles will ask me, how do you juggle? I don't know. I don't know. I just don't. People make it look so easy. I mean, like that, but. Yeah, that's pretty wild. Just, I wonder what they're doing. I mean, just, hey, let's get together and throw some knives around. I'll see you next week.
Take care, all right?
Thank you. You too. See ya. Good to see you.
I just wanted to ask you, I'm like, wrapped up with all my planning,
Good.
but I want to know, before I sent you a, 10-page thing, did you want this logic model, or did you want my questions, their responses?
Put the whole thing in there.
Okay.
I'll look through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The top part one is the thickest. I mean, it's the,
Yeah.
it's the needs assessment findings, it's the objectives, it's the logic model. part two, is basically that lesson plan template, the activity template, a couple other parts, the NICCPR, it's much smoother, these last two parts. And with any program, the planning part's the hardest part. Once you get through a needs assessment, you did a good job of that. The rest is kind of like, okay, let's have fun building activities and writing objectives for them and evaluating them. And that's where next week we're gonna spend time building an activity and talking about what do you do with the data? Like we did with the bumper stickers, what do you do with that? You know, and so, yeah, that'll be good.
All right, yeah, I'll get it all, organized.
Thanks.
And
That'll be
send it
good.
over to you tonight. Also,
That's great.
I went fishing in the swamp. That sounds like a great.
Did you really? Did you get it?
Here.
Oh, you been yeah, okay, cool.
Have you ever called or heard of the Thursday?
Sure. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
This,
No kidding, look at that. Oh, man, real.
I caught in the Still River, and then
No kidding. What's the state record?
16.
Dang. Wow, that's incredible. I mean, and you're fishing, what'd you catch it on?
Are you familiar with Captain Bert Dean? He's a DNR captain down at Waycross. And he makes, Dr. Irwin knows him really well. He makes these all kind of lures and little flies for fish in the swamp and the other blackwater rivers around it and for the coast.
Okay,
And he makes this thing, he calls it a Dearest Den. It's got like a tail, like a rooster tail type thing with a treble hook on the end of it, and then like a blade that spins around. And you just cast it in the water, reel it in, and
Wow.
they
okay, not just that, but other stuff, or is it designed for both?
mostly them, also chain pickerel were
Oh, yeah, yeah.
called
Oh,
for
yeah.
chain pickerel.
Kind of like a pipe, you know,
Into
into
the
the pipe
thing.
up there. Yeah, yeah, that's cool. I thought that's a hard fight to fish. Even
It
that
is.
sucks. I mean, they're muscular, so
And
that's cool.
I taught this lady how to use one of them,
Really?
and not, I don't know if you're familiar with Champ Bailey, but he's from folks.
Yeah,
That's his mom.
really?
She was
No
out.
kidding. Wow, I see it says Team Bailey. Wow, so what is that? Is that largemouth? Maybe-
No, that's another boat.
God, it looks so weird, just that angle, it almost looks like a largemouth bass, you know, but
Yeah, they.
that's cool.
Oh. They call it,
Oh, yeah, look at,
you can see the
yeah. And he makes those. And you just, that's really wow. Wow.
The first one I called, I had it on the edge of the bank. And I'll show you
Yeah.
what came and called it. I was reeling it in. This guy came up and ate it.
Really, look at that.
He grabbed it off my line and I'm.
Yeah,
I jumped up on the bench to get that picture.
Jeez, yeah. I mean, you probably took him just like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all Okefenokee.
Mhm.
It's all, yeah, that is so, what a cool part of the state. I mean, that's where you're from?
Mhm.
That's really neat. You know, but you remember Ranger Pete? Did he come in?
He did.
Okay. He used to work in the Okefenokee service for like 13 years or something. In my natural history of Georgia class, I had him come in his class fall and talk about what he did in the Okefenokee. They even talk about the people there, the culture, and he does a really neat job with that activity. And he lived right down there. He knows that it's a lot of historical, cultural stuff that goes on there. So I'm sure you're aware of. I mean, that's really cool.
I worked there one summer.
Did you at the swamp?
With,
Oh, man.
youth conservation before.
Sure.
Yeah, I was, but they had a crew there for that.
Oh, man, that's why. You worked with them. That's been around for years. YCC is like the civilian conservation for way back. Then you got into the kids side and then the youth side, and that's really wild, man. Gosh, that's awesome. I didn't know that. I did not know that. That's cool stuff. I'm glad you. went there.
I'm sure you heard of all the mines and the House bill to protect it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, my dad went up to the Capitol yesterday. He's the president of like the Okefenokee Refuge Friends Group. And he went up there to speak against the mines and whatnot.
change a lot of that, you know. I think if folks don't hear from the local side, they're never gonna have any connection. They're never gonna understand what that means, you know, that tie to the land, you know, I mean, and that's a rare thing. There's a lot of places in the nation that don't have that anymore. People, you know, somebody grew up somewhere and then they move away. And you lose that identity. But like your dad being, he's probably been there his whole life.
Yeah.
So you get somebody like that that can say, listen, if this happens, here's what's gonna happen. Habitat wise, culturally, historically, there's a lot of, yeah, they need to hear that. I'm glad that he did that.
They called up, a couple other folks to speak for the opposition. But what they didn't know is all three of them own land that mine will be dying. So they stand to gain.
Well, sure, they're gonna get some money.
Yeah, but my dad and, another man, a reverend that some folks, and they spoke against it. And I have a video of it.
Wow. Well, I hope they listen to them, you know, because if you don't live there, you know, it's hard to understand. Not my backyard, well, it's not my backyard, so what do I get? Well, wait a minute. I hope this work pays off, you know. Yeah, that's unfortunate that somebody, I understand it, I guess, from their standpoint, but sure, they're against this idea because they want the money, you know, it's just. Oh, well.
They'll be okay, they're already really well.
Oh, yeah,
A little more.
yeah. Well, I'm really glad that, you went fishing, too. I'm glad you did that.
I was thinking about my project, my program, as I was teaching. It's like,
It's something that, you know, it's a real skill. And it's something that if you're doing it with other people, there's a lot of that self-consciousness, you know, that, you know, especially if you're around your friends and you don't really know what you're doing, you're gonna act like you do, and then that, so this whole thing is, people that don't know how to fish, there's a lot to it, but I think you can introduce it to them in a way that they go, you know what? Okay, I know enough to be dangerous.
well, like her, when she was out there, she started just fishing with like, worm and, you know, bobber. But she wanted to try that, and she had the, you know, the money to go get the Durafin and all, but she didn't know how to tie it on. So I did that for her. I took the fish off the hook, the bad teeth. So, I mean, it's something that she goes out there a lot, and she's in her 60s, but, you know, she still, whenever her line breaks, she has to go home. Her brother does it for her. But it's kind of made me think a little more.
Yeah, that's one person, and, if you could teach a handful of people how to do this, you think about it like a train the trainer, you know, she could go and show somebody else, I mean, that's really cool, and those boatmen, aren't they in this, you know what a snakehead fish is?
They look a lot alike.
Yeah.
I don't think they're in the, I know they're not the same genus,
Okay,
but I think that they're somewhat related.
okay,
Well, there's actually a guy from the Chesapeake Bay that he came up to me. I was right there about the visitor center and everything fishing. And he was asking me if it's a snakehead. I was like, oh, no, sir, it's not. It looks like it, but it's native.
right,
And he was saying about how up there they, I didn't know.
yeah, people have, well, I don't know how it started, but somebody thought, I mean, it was so big in the news, maybe 15 years ago. These things were up there and they were moving, you know, they apparently can go on land and go from one pond to another and wipe out the pond. And then I guess somebody just thought, well, let's see what they taste like. So I guess people started eating them, and and those things get big, but when you look at a boat, then you go, oh, that does kind of, now the jaw on a snakehead is way different.
And they have, you saw on the boat that they have that really long dorsal fin.
Yeah.
Snakehead has that as well, but then I think that the bowfin, I think it's the pectoral and the caudal or
Is that what it is?
fin,
Yeah,
they're separate.
okay.
Snakeheads.
It's like
Really?
all connected, or what, yeah, Snakehead definitely looks invasive. You know, you can tell this is not from around here. I can imagine that guy from a distance going, man, that kind of looks, you know, a long fish like that. That kind of looks like a snakehead. But yeah, bowfin is, real. I can't believe you caught one that big.
We caught, in those 2 days, I and, the guy that I was with, we caught 36. So when we got to the boat, there were more that, you know, got off with step lines.
Bowfin, just alone, 36.
They were, well, 33, with 3 chains.
Wow. And this is all on light tack. I mean, you're all on just pretty light tack.
My pound test for my line was about 8 pounds.
Whoa.
And whenever I hooked into that bit, when I loosened up the drag really a lot to let it, you know, kind of tire itself out. But
Yeah.
It made for a fun fight. I had to get him in the boat with, you know, just pliers and a net.
Oh, yeah.
Line
Wow. Man, I mean, that's 8 pound test. Plus there's probably structure under the water
Mhm.
that he's going through, pulling on that, you know, and he's probably wondering, oh gosh, if this gets on a branch or something, breaks, that's it, you know, so that's what's so tough, you know, is, and I don't know that people understand some of these fishing shows, these guys, they may not be running super heavy tests either, but those fish are actually getting back into structure, and they're trying to fight them out of that. Now they're moving their boat around, and that's really risky. I mean, it just takes one little rub that line against something and done. So I'm glad you got that. That's really cool. Yeah. That just goes to show you've got that talent. And you just like when we start this whole journey, you start with your passion. And then we see, well, is there a need related to your passion? And you're seeing that there's a gap in skills in that lady, and I'm sure a lot of other people. You just showing some simple stuff. Really change the way they think about going outside, especially where they live near that stuff. There's no barrier. I don't have to drive an hour to get to water. I'm right there. Now I can do something. And and even if you think about it from a big standpoint, the more that a kid knows how to do stuff like that, the more they're gonna be feeling good about their ability to help others. Do stuff outdoors, stress reduction, all that. I mean, it's just, and sadly, there are so many parents that just don't do that with their kids anymore. So, you know, being able to be the 4-H agent that does it, that's great, you know, So I say, I can see you running an entire part of your role as a 4-H agent to be in this area. I'd love to do that. You know, because you can tie that skill back to so many things, logic model, long-term impacts. Keeping kids out of trouble. Now they've got something they can do that's positive. That's great. That's really cool. Yeah, that's what's cool about extension. Yeah. And did you find out about the internship thing? Is that kind of a?
So I haven't heard back from them yet.
Okay.
I'm just kind of waiting on them.
This is Al Parker, that whole side, okay. Yeah.
I think there's just a lot of, you know, moving parts with. I'll be a UGA hire, but I won't be paid, so there's a lot of, you know. Weird, it's a weird situation, because they said, we'll get your salary worked out, and I was like, well, actually can't get paid for account for class credit.
Right, but, yeah, sure, but 100% of folks that do an extension internship have gotten hired, because they wanted to, you know. So, you doing that, if you wanna be a 4-H agent, I think you're in. You do that, and I just, hopefully, it sounds like, you know, hopefully, when you do the internship, it's everything you thought it would be. Because every once in a while, you know, a student will do an extension internship and go, I didn't think it, I thought it would be this, and then it ended up being this, and good that they did it before they got hired and they found out this is what I want to do. So that's cool, but most of the time, people that do the internship go, yep, this is what I thought it was, and this is what I want, and they get hired. So it's a great job. I mean, extension, that would be, so what you could do is, you get hired as, I guess, a 4-H educator, work for 6 months, and then you can do the TAP program, and you can get master's degree paid for it. And then, you know, that's, once you work 6 months, then you, I mean, MAEE and ALEC or wherever, do it online from wherever you are. and you get that tuition waived. Get your master's degree for nothing. And that's a great, the only downside of that in extension is there's so many people that get hired, work for 6 months, get the master's degree and then fail. You know, it's like, I get it, you can't make them stay.
Yeah.
You got a free master's degree, but I mean, you know, and then you get salary bump with that. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's so many benefits to that, the retirement, the healthcare and all that. I know it sounds weird to talk about retirement, but
But
it is, I'm telling you, it is so important to think about it. You know, right now, just to go, okay. They're gonna put a certain amount of money aside every month for me and match it and all that. And you don't have to worry about that, you know? I know in Georgia with the teachers' retirement system, you know, that's a really, really good thing.
that was, one of the biggest reasons why I was reluctant to go away from like K-12. My parents are in that, they have like really good retirement.
My extension, same thing. I've got TRS, you know, oh
Same.
yeah, same thing. You choose 2 different paths. You either choose teacher's retirement or you choose the optional retirement plan, ORP. It's either TRS or ORP. And when I first moved down here in 2008, my neighbor at the time worked in HR here and was the retirement guy for UGA, right? And I remember talking to him, and then just talking to him, and he said, well, I'm the retirement guy, you know, in HR. I said, oh, yeah. He said, Mr. Louis, but I'm gonna make a decision here about optional retirement plan or teacher's retirement plan. And I didn't know a lot about it. I was reading up on it and said, look, he said, teacher's retirement, you gotta be around for 10 years to get vested in it. He said, but it's like the best thing in the whole country. I mean, it is like guaranteed you're set. And I said, okay, well, that's what I'll do. I hope I'm around for 10 years. And I just did it. And it really, that's supposed to be a really good thing. So, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, little things like that, you think. I know it doesn't seem like anything now, but, you know, later on, you start thinking, when you start talking to folks who have been doing something for 15 or 20 years, they're really worried about retirement. You won't be in that boat. You know, you'll say, well, you know, I'm pretty much secure. So that's another good thing about extension. You know, you'll be, that's really cool. Yeah, all these things that we do in here, you're gonna see such a big part of extension is program development. I mean, it's like a huge part of your job. That's why I'm so glad you're here. You know, it's just, oh man, I'm glad that case. Thanks for showing me those fish, man. That is great. Gosh, and I tell you, I'm so excited to read your stuff because I'm biased, but I love fishing too. And so I'm interested to see, well, what kind of activities could you do? What are you going to start? Where are you going to end? You know, I mean, it's just like, that's really cool. Because the cool thing is teaching somebody how to fish, you're not going to do it in half an hour. It's going to take a series of things. So that's
I'm
cool.
thinking I can kind of like teach them behind a little bit of the, you know, just the mechanics of it, you know, rigging up a pole and taking them out, teaching how to cast.
Yeah.
From what I got, I think that I'll probably have a lesson, planned out where I'm, you know, just teaching them how to look for fish.
Just imagine.
Yeah.
When you look at a pond, where is it that you would think about casting first? Looking for structure, looking for edge, you know, oh yeah, that is, yeah. You do it so much, you don't think about it. But when you start thinking about what you know, if somebody knows nothing, whoa, you gotta take them a long way. So that's cool, you know, I mean, that's absolutely. Oh, you can have so much fun and stuff. You can, oh my gosh, the technicals. And what's nice is people love hands-on stuff. So they're gonna love to learn about how to tie different knots or how to put this, how to decide on a lure, given the cloud conditions and the water clarity and all that. People get into that stuff, you know, I mean, so that's good stuff, Casey. I love it. Well, whenever you can, send that to me and I'll take a look at it and then we'll be together this week. That's good stuff. Thanks as always, Casey. I'm excited for you. It's great. All right, man. Enjoy the night. See you. Thanks. See ya.